our meeting to order. I am going to ask everybody to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Well, we're really excited to have guests tonight. Hopefully, some of you are some of our applicants, I would only imagine. So welcome. I'll now ask that my fellow trustees and our guests help me in reciting the mission and the vision of the Nampa School District. Starting with the mission. The mission of the Nampa School District is to ensure 5 levels of achievement for every student. Vision. Every student is fully engaged in extraordinary learning experiences, preparing for a successful transition to the next stage of life. Great. I will now go ahead and welcome a motion to approve our agenda.
Motion. I move that we approve the agenda.
Second. Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes all 4 in favor. All right.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The addendum that was sent via email, is that automatically included in there? Do we have to add that in a motion?
That would be the consent agenda. And once we get to the consent agenda, it would automatically be included.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we will welcome our student spotlight.
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight is Skyview softball, and we are really excited about Skyview softball here. I think we're actually waiting for the head coach, Mr. Tim Sousa, to come, but we have a couple of folks here, Carlene and Kylie will come up here and share us a little bit about it. One thing that I would like just to state, and I believe we are back to back.
That's correct.
State champions.
3 times state
So if not one of the most successful programs we have in our district, and they compete at, Carlene, if I'm not right, the 5A level? Right?
Now we're down to the 4A level.
Okay, now you're back down.
Yes.
I mean, back-to-back championships against some of the largest schools in the valley that we play.
That is correct.
Dr. Russell, if it allows, I don't think we have any issue moving up trustee comments and possibly public comments to wait for your guys'
That would be amazing.
Yeah, let's do that for you.
Let's wait.
Yeah.
All right.
We got the introduction out of the way.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And you look the part with the matching shirts. You feel convinced.
We were on the same page.
Good. And you were going to go do it anyway. So. All right. So with that, I'll go ahead and start with trustee comments. We'll start with the brave one and go left.
Oh, wow.
Is there anybody who has any
Put in
comments?
this spot. No, I just want to, summer's over, so we're ready to rock and roll and move on with a lot of things that we got planned. So I'm excited to be here, to be part of the process. And I'm still trying to figure out whether I'm going to run or not. So everything's up in the air. And yeah. Like I said.
I love it. Anything?
Just super excited, not only on social media, seeing the start to school and first day pictures and just all the great things that are happening in the district, but also just hearing from a few parents and running into a few parents and kiddos and hearing what a great first start last week was for them. And so just wanted to share that.
Love it. So first of all, I want to thank my fellow trustees. I had a couple of weeks of vacation. It was wonderful. I want to thank Dr. Russell for keeping me very updated while on vacation. It's just so nice to be a part of a team that wants to be functional and keep people updated. And it's just a breath of fresh air. So I've loved it. Super excited to hear how well the start of school has gone. Very excited to get back into classroom visits, being part of, the activity going on. But summer was very welcome this year. I have a whole new appreciation for what summer break means, like an entirely new appreciation. So kudos to the teachers who also have that appreciation for what summer vacation means. And I'm really excited to start to move forward to fill our vacant seat. Excited that we had 6 applications come through. There's a packet in front of us that I'm really excited for us to review and go over tonight together. Reminder that we do have those interviews Wednesday night. So very quick. It's a very quick turnaround for us, but excited for the process.
Great. Well, just to comment on trustee Valley's comment. Summer's not yet over until September. However, I know summer break is over. but
My summer, though.
I'm holding on to it as long as I can. No, I heard nothing but great things about the school start, and it was smooth and after a number of years. So one of the smoothest starts. It was good to see staff out there on the first day, and yeah, really appreciate. I got a lot of positive comments from parents and teachers. Oh, excited, yeah, excited. And I appreciate the email invitation from Superintendent Russell to get out there with him in the schools. We get some of those scheduled like midnight. I don't know if your teachers are in the schools around 2 or 3 in the morning.
We'll make it work.
All right. That's all.
Perfect. All right, with that, we're going to move to public comment. Our clerk is going to go ahead and grab those sheets to see what we have going on.
Or wait, for those, I did want to comment, Tyler, on the efforts that in the new logo, and it just looks fresh and updated. Everywhere you look now, you see it. And so I always appreciate that when I see it. So,
And all the new stuff on the website
yeah,
when you
good-
open
good
it
for
up.
you and your team,
I
Tyler,
agree.
whoever has their hands in that.
No public comment at this time. Is our coach here any closer?
There's not. He just texted and said he is unable to make it. So
Okay.
it is the two of us representing Skyview
Then
softball.
up you come, back up you come.
So he does send his apologies, but he is organizing some travel ball teams that represent all the high schools in our valley. So it kind of helps them get ready for our season. So anyway, this is Kylie Pro. She's the assistant coach. I'm just the volunteer coach. It keeps me sane.
Yes,
We're
thank
here
you
to-
for letting us be here and giving us the spotlight. Our girls worked really hard these last few years and on and off the field, so we're happy to represent them. And
Exciting. So I heard Dr. Russell say that you guys have some championship titles. What was it that you had said?
Back to back state
Yep.
titles. That's 3 state titles in a row,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is just phenomenal to think. I mean, it's really, really difficult to win one state championship, but I mean, it really shows the strength of a program to continually do that. And I'm, at this point, it's new kids coming through. So
Yeah.
it's definitely
That's
showing a
awesome.
program.
It's a dynasty.
yeah,
It is.
That's exciting.
yeah,
That's
we were
really-
able to win 2 at the 5A level, and then last year was our first year at 4A, and we were able to win that one. So
That's awesome.
So when the other teams see you on their schedule that they have to play against, so you just see them shivering in their boots.
There's a target on our back for sure.
We've got to play
Um,
Skyview.
yeah.
Yeah.
When do you guys start your season? Because it can't be, I mean, do they practice through the summer? Do you practice through the summer at all?
We are not allowed to do that. We start the last day of February and we have 10 days before our first game.
Oh, wow.
So lucky for us, a lot of our kids play year round with the help of our head coach who coaches those teams to keep them playing. That's the only way we can stay competitive.
Yeah, I think that there's a really big need for club that does help us stay a little bit more competitive.
To continue the success of Skyview softball, is there anything from the board that we might be able to do to help that? To continue success?
Field would be great.
Obviously.
Yeah. We don't have our own field.
We don't have our own field. We're the only high school that doesn't have our own.
We share with Little League, so that's fun.
He always gets nervous when I ask that.
No.
It's hard because we do have to share with the community and we get bumped off frequently.
Oh, out there. that part.
Girls sports don't seem to take a priority over guys. When guys want to come onto the field, they take it over. So we have a small
'Cause it's
area.
not our field.
Yeah, it's not our field. We have a small portion of time that it's ours, but after that, like if we want to stay and work longer, we don't.
So where do you guys end up moving your practices to, if at all?
If baseball isn't using the hitting facility, sometimes we go in there. But they have 3 teams now because they can have a freshman team, which has 8th graders on it, and then so 4 teams. So they can have an 8th grade team now too. So we have to figure out a schedule with them, and usually it gets messed up. And
So
And
more
everything.
places to practice is what I hear the request.
Do you use other fields like Columbia or Nampa?
No, we use just the Skyview complex. I mean, that's our field. That's where we get the most work in on the infield for our kids, is to practice where we play.
And then is that where you play as well?
Our home games?
Yes. Okay. Great.
Currently, would you be able to share with us this year, is it a mix between sophomore, junior, senior? Is it mostly a senior older group or?
We will be young.
Okay.
We graduated 5 seniors this last year. The year before that, we graduated 8. All of our seniors, with the exception of 1, have gone on to play, whether it's NAIA, junior college, or
So cool.
Division 3. I think we've had 1 go Division 1. Which is pretty phenomenal. So yeah, we're very young this year, but young is okay. Young is how you build.
Mhm. But the continued success, even with the young players, comes in is really something to cheer about. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Well, we invite you all to come out to a game.
Oh, I'll be there.
Cold games are not always as fun, but when the weather's nice, please come out and
So
enjoy.
when is your guys' first game?
It would be 10 days. I don't believe that the schedule's
Is it
even
scheduled
made
after
yet.
the
It would be 10 days after we start practice, which is February 28th, I believe is when the official start of practice.
So March 10th is when your games start.
Right around there, yeah.
I will definitely be making a game this year.
Awesome.
That would be awesome.
It's pretty fun.
Very cool. Awesome.
Any more questions for us? Sorry, we didn't
Thank
get
you.
girls here. And
No, listen, this is great.
Coach
I
forgot,
think
it's
it
fine.
proves that There's your guys' success is proof that there's commitment. We totally get it. This is the first board meeting. School just started. We get it. So thank you so much for taking.
How long
time
have
to
you
be
been the
here.
assistant coach?
This will be my 5th year. And the head coach, this will be his 5th year as well.
How long have you been volunteering?
since I've come to the Nampa School District 5 years,
Oh,
I coached in West Ada before that, West Ada, and then I've coached her teams as well. So
And thank you for being a volunteer. coach.
Yeah.
it's what I love to do.
That's awesome.
It's giving back.
Yeah, awesome.
So thanks, you
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
It's cool.
All right, guys, with that, because we didn't have public comment and we moved those 2 slots around, I will move for a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
that motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we have approval on the consent agenda, which is going to move us directly into action items. And that is going to put us at policy A, 8200, the wellness policy. Dr. Russell?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, excuse me, and trustees, 3 policies tonight. I'm going to have Mr. Stoffer come up and share the first one, which is policy 8200. This is a policy that we already have. The other 2 are new policies that we'll be presenting tonight. This is a policy that there's some adjustments that come from the federal level that Mr. Stoffer is going to share with us on.
Trustee Taylor, Board of Trustees. This is just an update. The reason why we need to update it is every year we have some USDA regulations that get updated, and we have not updated ours since 2021. Through some of our evaluations through our food service, which this is really connected to, it really deals with the health and the wellness of the students in relationship to food nutrition services. These are just the requirements. We did have a group that went through and made sure that it was compliant, and we just present in front of you the adjustments that are needed to put us in compliance with the USDA and our State Department of Education over food nutrition services.
Okay, trustees, do we have any questions for Mr. Stoffer?
No.
No.
No? Okay, with no questions for Mr. Stoffer, do we have a motion that somebody would like to make?
Yeah, Chair, I move to accept the revised policy
Okay,
8200.
motion has been made. Do we have any second?
Sure.
Okay.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will with that move to policy 2310, therapy dogs.
Mr. Stoffer's back up.
I thought I got a break.
Trustees, before you is policy 2310, which has to do with therapy dogs. We have had some therapy dogs in our school for a couple of years now. What we realized is we have not had a policy around it. And that is something that we felt like we really needed to, so that we can ensure that there are certain amounts of requirements to have dogs in the schools and trainings and whatnot. Mr. Stoffer's here just to kind of share a little bit about that policy.
So a little bit of background, as Dr. Russell shared, is that we have had therapy dogs in the district for quite a few years, and we're seeing a desire to have more come into our schools. looking through and just visiting with other school districts, looking throughout the state of Idaho, we found 2 additional districts that have therapy dog policies. So we reviewed those and chose the things that we thought were the most important and to give us a good policy to help out bringing in, not to advert or push away from therapy dogs. We've had seen some good successes with them being in the school. The schools report a lot of good things. We've actually had Roosevelt Elementary has come in before. They were kind of our pilot program many years ago, and they've shared their successes with the board in previous board meetings as well. We just wanted to have a good policy in place, some structure in place of how to bring the animals in to make sure certifications were in place, vaccinations were in place, just to separate also any district ownership versus owners or public ownership, just making sure it was really clear of how we went through that process. We also took this proposal in front of you through legal. They approved it. They thought it was a very good document. So we just bring it forward for you just to help bring some things into place that have been operationalized in the district to streamline it and make sure that we had a policy that was behind it.
These dogs are not students.
They are not.
That's-
No, they're not. No, Trustee Kirkman, these are, the owners are typically staff members. We do not allow, and this policy will help with that as well as defining where the owners are typically staff, but also give some clear guidance on how to go about it, the processes to be approved as well. So it gives, again, that structure so it's not student-based and not a student can't come in and just say, I have a therapy dog. And there's a big difference between therapy dogs and service dogs. And so we make that delineation in this policy that service dogs are very different, and we do have a policy around service dogs.
What about service? What about therapy peacocks?
Yeah.
You know
So
where I'm going with
we
this.
haven't found the therapy peacocks, the therapy
Cats,
horses, but there is a distinct pathway for therapy dogs. There is certification for it. We couldn't find any other certifications for any other animals, and that's why this is therapy dogs.
And until there is one, we're sticking
Then we
with
get
dogs.
to have that moment when there is some courses that provide certification.
I was reading through this. Sorry, I've got a few questions.
Yeah,
I was
go
reading
for
through
it.
this, and I didn't see, and I may have missed it. What about the number of dogs in one school, one building at one time?
Yeah, that's a great question. We debated over that a little bit, and currently, I think Roosevelt has 2 dogs, and so in discussing it with the administrators, they wanted to have some flexibility with that.
Just leave it up to them.
Yeah. So the first part is the administrator has to approve it. That's what kicks off the process. So it's not I can come in and ask for as many dogs as I want. It does have some semblance of what is feasible for the school, and the building administrator has that first authorization piece.
Is liability insurance enough?
I think that's why we have the
What could
policy.
happen?
Yeah, I think that's why we have the policy is you look at the certifications. There's multiple layers of certification. There's also a part of the policy if there is any misbehavior by the animal of how we would remove the animal from the school and prevent them from coming back in. So I think there's both sides to it. We haven't had any issues yet, and so this is to help us with making sure that we've done the best to our ability to provide trained animals that have the background and to give the owners some strict guidelines on how to maneuver them through the schools.
That was going to be one of my questions. Sorry, Trustee Taylor. That was going to be one of my questions. Has there been any issues up till now? So this is,
There
we
hasn't.
just want to make sure that this is.
Yeah.
In legal review, when they reviewed this, did they set any limits for insurance?
So they were completely accepting of what we had put forward in here as far as the insurance, and we do have some indicators that we use historically for that. But the idea behind, again, the policy is we haven't had any issues. I just want to make sure that that is very, very clear. We haven't, but we have seen a growth in interest of bringing therapy dogs in, and so that's really what led us to these to this point. And we have looked at districts that have had experience. Bonneville School District is one, and then the Kimberly School District is another one that have had these policies in place for a series of years. So we look to them for some of the guidance as well. And since they've had the policy and actually have been using service dogs a little bit longer than we have.
Therapy dog.
Therapy dogs, excuse me, thank you. the therapy dogs they've been using a little bit longer than we have. And so we feel pretty good with where we are. Legal felt also very, felt that this policy was appropriate for what our intents were.
We use therapy dogs where I work, and I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. I think this is a great idea. If it's we cross our T's and dot our I's at the beginning, but I love it.
Yeah, it's really, if you look at, there's 4 different layers of certification that we're going to be asking for. So it's not just a, hey, my dog's a good dog, come on in.
Yeah, we'll let you use our dog.
Yeah.
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
And it's not my question. There was an email that was sent out about questioning the e-collars
Ditto.
and the reasons for that. I just wanted to know what your answer was for that.
A great question. So Trustee Valle, we actually used that from the other 2 districts that had a policy in place. It was part of their policies. And so we again, modeling it after ones that have been successful, that was the reason why.
My question was similar. Because I've seen that, love that we're coming up with a policy, totally get that we haven't had an issue, we just don't have policy, and I totally understand that people sometimes want to bring the dog in and we need to have parameters, I get it. I don't remember seeing our therapy dogs when I've been in schools with an e-collar. Did I miss that, or would this be a change? And how would that affect our current therapy dogs if it is?
Trustee Taylor, great question. What we have in here is at Nampa High, just to kind of break up, Nampa High has a group that comes in, so this would not fall underneath this umbrella. So I need to exclude them from our therapy dogs. They have an agreement with the community that they bring them in once a month. So this is not the same type of policy. It wouldn't fall under this policy. This is the one that's here day to day.
What purpose do they bring those dogs?
Similar, they come in, it's just the access. They have a group of, there's a community group that has therapy dogs that comes in and donates some time in Nampa High, and it's once a month. I believe that's, Waylon, can you help me with that? Is that about once a month? Or
Yeah, it's once a month during lunchtime,
Yep.
and it's the GO team therapy dogs. They go through a year-long training process in that scenario, so all those dogs are certified.
What about our dog at Save Roosevelt?
Yes, so those, as far as the e-collar, I don't know if they do, off the top of my head, if they do or do not have those. So there is some possible change for that. Again, our purpose and our rationale was based off of other policy that has been established and had worked. We also would like to give some time to grandfather any of the dogs. I put that in the memo that we wanted to work with those that we currently have in our buildings. Again, our purpose is not to exclude them, it's just to make sure that we give them appropriate time to get to the standards that we have. So we want to work with the owners and with the schools to adapt to the new policy if it is indeed adopted by the board.
That would be my only concern. I love the policy and love what we're doing, but because this one, and I want to be really transparent that I don't know a ton, but it was this statement that said many therapy dog organizations who have rules related to using their program's liability insurance actually ban the use of e-collars when operating as a therapy dog. Had a chance to Google some of that information. Looks like some of that is out there. And because my concern is that our current therapy dogs aren't actually using them, I don't know that we would want to retire a therapy dog. Just feeling like that may cause more red tape. And because I'm totally okay with it, besides that, with the first and final reading, how would you feel if we took that verbiage out? And then if we needed to add it later as a fail-safe, we could. I love that we're being proactive. I don't want to go the other way and then all of a sudden put a lot of things in there. And I do think it's difficult to explain to people who are avid dog lovers who don't believe in that. And then we have a therapy dog, and then that does add a little bit of convolution in the conversation.
Can explain what an e-collar is.
The shock collar.
For what purpose?
They're used for lots of different purposes. They were used for training. My assumption would be that in this particular scenario, that they would be used for control if all else failed. My only concern was, like I said before, in the therapy dogs that I have encountered within our school, I'm not sure that that's been our practice. Now, I've never looked for one nor even thought of asking, so I can't be sure of that. But reading that email did prompt a little bit of a question for me. And again, I want to make clear that the email stated that this person does use a shock collar when dog off leash. And there was a lot of reasons to use that. And I'm not saying that it's inhumane as much as if we're not currently using them, it is going to be a change. It may change some of our therapy dogs because not all have been trained that way. And that could be new for them.
Yeah. How many do we got right now currently? I mean, how many would that affect? How many dogs would that affect right now?
So,
I don't know because I don't know how many use.
Trustee Taylor and Board of Trustees, we have 5 schools right now that have therapy dogs in them currently. So it's about 5 dogs, 5 to 6 dogs. one of the things, just to give you a little bit of historical background as we studied this, many other states require muzzles to be on the dogs as far as the safety protection. We did not choose to put that one in ours. So there are a lot of other protective measures depending on the districts that you look at, depending on the states that you look at. There are very different types of safeties that are put into place. To be transparent, I don't necessarily have a problem if you, as a board, decide to remove that. I don't think this policy is contingent upon that. I do think it is something that we have seen in practice, we have seen in policy, and we wanted to bring forward something that was meeting some good criterion beforehand, and it had been vetted in other platforms.
If we pass the policy as it stands, does it give you time to grandfather our
Yes.
current dogs? And how does that look? Like, what does grandfathering our current dogs look like?
Again, Board Chairman Taylor, that's a great question. And I think it's unique based off of the dog, because some of the dogs will have more trainings than others. And so we'll need to work with each of the owners in each of the schools and lay a timeline up for them to accomplish it. Some are going to take longer than others. Again, our goal is not to remove them from the schools. That is not our objective. So we want to be as transparent, but yet worker friendly as possible to keep them in their schools.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I had mine is along the similar lines of the question of like even the certification.
Mhm.
Like, do all 5 of these dogs, have they gone through the certification that would be required? And that when I hear grandfather, to me, that means like they're not going to have to. But I want to make sure, because I felt like I heard you saying that it would be set more like they're going to meet the requirements, but there's just going to be a timeline to get there.
Yeah.
Is that
Chairman Simpson,
correct?
that's exactly what we're meaning by that. So my use of the term is to give them time to get to the standard that we would put forward. Again, with the purpose of we do not want to remove them from school. We just want to make sure that we have provided all the safeguards that we possibly can.
When they've proven themselves. So
They've already proven themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have we discussed this policy with the schools affected by it already? Are they aware that it's coming and they've been able to read through the verbiage with those dogs in mind already?
So Chair Taylor, yes, I was working specifically with Roosevelt on this one, and we have looked through quite a few of the different components and we also have some suggestions. We have some things that through Roosevelt's suggestions of where we can help get these resources to help the therapy dogs. We have varying different levels of certification because we didn't have a policy before. There is a varying range of who has certifications and who does not. This will help us to really clarify that and be able to help again move forward in the right direction. So kind of answering both questions, there are dogs with multiple different layers of certifications. Some have very minimal, some have more extensive.
So this allows you to get everybody on the same page.
Correct.
any public input you know of about this policy? I want to, like I said, I'm in favor of this policy. I don't necessarily want to, I don't think we should, go through and approve it right off the bat. I think maybe the first reading, and then give parents and others that might be concerned about dogs in the schools an opportunity to, that's just my thoughts.
If I can, I think this looks great. I think everything's covered. My number one concern was about the allergies that kids would probably have, but that's even outlined in here. And if the teachers currently that have the dogs or the schools that have it are okay with this policy, I don't see a reason why we shouldn't pass it.
But there's some kids that walk in and just the sight of a dog could be traumatic for a student. I mean, we don't know who those are. And I think given an opportunity for some parents who may have some concerns, I mean, we can go through 2 readings of this before we pass it. That's just all I'm wondering, if we just get a little bit of time for public to input.
I'm going to say that mine would suffice to the answering of your question. I think if the e-collar is the fail-safe, that we're giving time for the dogs to catch up. We've already had the therapy dogs. I'm much more in alignment with Trustee Baye. Not at all that I think that we couldn't wait, but I think that feedback can come from this, knowing that you've already discussed this with the schools that are using this as a practice. Because I think that we use dogs for all types of therapy, and we could run into a situation where a dog is actually manhandled or possibly even, struck or something along those lines. If it's a possibility, because kids are kids, right? So I do think that if we're getting the dogs to the same page, if it's your fail safe. I think if you already have that feedback from where the dogs are, I feel more comfortable with it. So I'm gonna go with what Trustee Biden said.
Feedback from who though? The teachers, the school?
Yeah, that's what he just said, is the dogs that are in use.
They've been there for years.
Yeah, they've been there
I
for
feel like
years.
it-
So yeah, I
it
feel like the
becomes-
parents, yeah, they've been there for such a long time. I feel like we would have heard that information as well.
Trustee
Not that I
Taylor,
think you're,
Board
yeah.
of Trustees, we do have more that want to come on board. And I think that was the reason for us trying to get this to you is we do have some other schools that would like to bring on therapy dogs. And we're realizing the value and also having more and more schools accessing it. We wanted to make sure that we got something in front of them. I do think as we go through this, there could be some revisions that we may need to bring back to you. Again, we haven't had a policy before, but I do think it's one that we spent some time looking at. And again, referencing schools that have used it with success, even here in Idaho. We aren't as strict as some of the other districts that we looked at. There are some that were very, very strict, never off their leash. Muzzles, some things that to me looked more inhumane from the get-go than what the intent of the therapy dog was for. But again, I understand the concerns that you have. We're more than happy to make some adjustments. Again, our purpose is just to make sure that we can bring something forward and have a good structure for our therapy dogs. So again, we're really just looking for feedback, and if there is any of that, we're more than happy to go back to the table and look at it as well. But we would like to, just with that, we'd have to stay some of those that would like to bring dogs in early on. We would like to hold off on doing that until we had a policy in
Well, that
place.
was my question. How soon would they be able to walk through the door if this was to pass today? Are they certified? These dogs are certified, ready to?
That is the
bring to
question.
school?
So no, great question again, Trustee Kirkman. We don't know because we don't have a policy in yet, so they haven't been able to match it yet. So some of those probably are not, and they would probably need to receive some additional training.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, if anybody wanted to bring a new dog on, that we would like them to go through, if the policy is adopted,
Mhm.
just go through, so there is that training, that certification, that assurance that there's vaccinations done and those type of things. To bring any new dogs on, we'd want to do that. With the dogs that we have currently, we would ask that the owners work on that and give them a reasonable time frame to be able to get those things done. So
And what I hear is the success of the program is what's spawning other people
Correct.
with the therapy dogs at the elementary level.
Correct.
So let me throw this out there. You have just as a scenario, you have a breed of dog, which say it's a pit bull, that is certified as a therapy dog and comes into an elementary school with small kids. You don't think that there's going to be parents that are a little bit concerned, even with the certification? That's my only concern is to get like I said, I love the policy and I think this is great. I think therapy dogs are extremely useful. But I'm just concerned about not getting the additional input from parents on what the what ifs.
Yeah, so I
And I'm not saying that pit bulls
Right.
couldn't be great therapy dogs. I'm just saying there's that breed out there that just kind of stokes the no matter what training they have.
and my thing is they are animals, right? Like they're like Chair Taylor was even saying, like, kids may do things, somebody may think it's funny to quickly walk by and poke the dog in the eye, and then what's the reaction, right? And I wouldn't blame a dog for biting a kid that did that, but I also don't want that happening in our buildings, right? And so just wanting to be safe, to be cognizant, and kind of to hear, I just feel like those 5 buildings that have dogs, I'm sure that parents know that those dogs are in there, and we would be hearing if it was a problem. But I hate to open it up. I think that's the importance of multiple reads, is that we give our community an opportunity to say, hey, like, what do we think about this, and provide some feedback. So for that, and I could probably go either way, but for that reason, and because I'm just leaning more towards a first read approval and not a final, because I want, they're animals, and there can be things that go awry. And so I want to make sure we're methodical and giving it some really good time. And not to say that then all this needs to stop either. I mean, I think that we don't have policy in place, so the 5 that are working and doing that will not, those kids and those buildings will not be impacted by a first read decision. And maybe even some of them will provide feedback and you know, of what's been working and things for them as well.
Is there any thought given to the breed of dog?
Trustee
Like
Kirkman,
limitations to like a little Chihuahua coming
Yeah,
in?
that's something we did consider, but looking at the policies
I find my
that.
Chihuahua very emotionally supportive, so it's
I-
all
yeah.
clear. And her name is Alma.
I think
No,
there's always different types of breeds that could be brought onto the list. We did consider that initially when we looked at it, but some of the challenges with that is that where do you draw the line? I think that's where you start getting a lot more opinion on what dog is better than this dog. What we're concerned more is about how they're trained
Sure.
and what they can bring to the schools. It is something we considered, but we did not bring it forward in this revision or this version of it.
I think I probably could go either way, like Trustee Simpson said, if it's just moving on from a first read to a second. And I say this because I'm with you. I think as long as they're meeting the certification, again, talking through the e-collar makes a little bit more sense for me. I'm an avid dog lover, not a trainer, not a therapy expert. So I think you guys have done your due diligence. If our goal here is just first read, move on, I of course don't want to be the tiebreaker because I'm either way with it. I feel like the policy is good. I feel like the work is there. So if our goal is to give parents some time to bring forward any concerns, I don't think that hurts us in any way.
That's what I appreciate.
Yeah, so I don't think that hurts us in any way so that we can more also be on the same page. But I think the work on the policy is great. And I think that you guys are just bringing forth policy for the need of what's arising and what's been working, and so that it can go on and you guys can have some procedure around it. So this is a great piece of policy. I think it's very methodical and thought out. If our goal is just, you know, again, community interaction, I can hear that.
Yeah.
Chair Taylor, we're comfortable with either, just to make sure we're comfortable. We just know that we had some schools that are interested in bringing in therapy dogs. And so that's the reason why we brought it forward in this capacity. So we are completely comfortable with that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Totally get it.
yeah, totally get it.
Yeah, no, yeah, everybody knows I have a child that has autism. It's not a child anymore, but we did buy him a dog. And we did get him trained, and it was just a basic training. Even with the basic training, there was so much poking and making sure that the dog was not going to bite back. It was, even with the basic training, it was serious training to make sure that nothing would happen to my kid. And I'm telling you that training works. And this type of training goes way beyond the norm. So to me, I'm not, and the trainers know what breeds to train and what breeds not to train. So they push that aside and they say this dog cannot be handled, because they'll test that dog in every way, shape, or form to make sure he's going to do the job that's being required to do. So I kind of seen that world. So to me, I feel very comfortable just sending this through. But if, like I said, people just want community feedback, I guess we can prolong the process. I have no problems with that.
So Chair Taylor, I'll make a motion, and I think we're not up against timelines here. There's no rush here. The dogs that are currently in service, if you will, are still going to be there. So I'll make a motion that we recommend that we do a first read policy. We do a first read policy at 2310.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So we're accepting it as the first read. We'll do our second read at the next meeting. I don't think that there is any changes to this policy. Again, I want to clarify that what we've decided here is that we're waiting on public input if any should come forward. And I want to thank you for your work. And Trustee Valle, I really want to thank you for sharing your experience with therapy dogs, because the Chihuahua bites and is very nippy, and I think it needs the training. So
And I think it would be good to explain the training too, because I think maybe some people don't understand what goes through into something like that for the dogs. I mean, it's so.
Absolutely.
So sorry, my computer was restarting through all of that and is up, but I thought I remembered one about the barking, that there was
There is.
cards in there, but I don't remember the kind of like that idea of the ones that are working already. Is that written out in there that like it will be worked out, a schedule will be worked out with the building administrator? I mean, I'm just wondering about having that, not like this person's gonna have their dog meet all these requirements by this date in there, but just simply saying that the dogs that have been in our buildings prior to this date, you know, are gonna work through with the administrator to meet the requirements.
Trustee Simpson, thank you. We did not, by advice of the attorney, we did not put any exclusions in the policy.
Okay.
We did put it in the memo. In our memo, we did talk about
Okay, thank you.
how we would work with the current schools and help
Gotcha.
them meet that. We didn't want to have any exclusionary wording in our policy.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Great
welcome.
work. Thank you, Mr. Stoffer. And with that, you guys, we're going to move to policy 2180, and by Mr. Stoffer's movement to his seat, I assume we're going to hear from not Mr. Stoffer.
That was pretty quick.
Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight before you is a new policy to the district. This policy is 2180, looking at doing a first read tonight. And this law, or this policy, follows very closely to Idaho law that was adopted in our last legislative session. Idaho Code 336001 and 6002 that deal with parental rights. The board memo breaks it down as simple as I could, because there's quite a few things in this policy, but I'll just walk the board through those and can have a discussion of questions after that. Starting there, roughly basically in line 11 through 21, it talks about parents can ask for reasonable accommodations if they object to any materials in the classroom that are taught. So it addresses that. If there are concerns about the classroom, it addresses where those concerns should first be brought forth, and that is to the teacher and the building administrator. Lines 29 through 39 state that parents may pull their students if they have any objections to any of the materials. So they have that ability to do that. Lines 41 through 45 in the policy, what they do is they discuss the school district is not necessarily responsible for the dual credit course in those higher level courses. Those are done at different institutions. So it just informs parents that the district's not responsible for the selection and adoption of those. Lines 49 through 58, it says it can notify parents if there is a difference or a change in a student's mental, emotional, or physical well-being. And it discusses that in those lines. 62 through 66, it talks about schools will notify parents if a student is questioned by a school resource officer. So it addresses that as well. And then lines 76 through 83 talk around surveys. And they discuss that surveys need to be prior approved through the superintendent. And that if there are some topics such as sexuality, sex, religion, political beliefs, mental or psychological problems, personal information, family information, or financial information, that those are not allowed without parental consent or prior parental written approved. So we have to talk through that. And then 87 through 97 lines there. Parent must have obtained permission for the school before attending. So if parents want to visit a school, they can have every right to do that. Just ask that they work through the administration to find a time to be able to do that. So parents can have the opportunity to visit schools there. Lines 101 through 105 deals with informing parents if they do choose to pull a student from curriculum or materials that it could impact high school graduation and eligibility for some athletics activities and things like that. Just there's enough information on those. Line 109 through 118, it talks about schools will inform parents about all health services that will be provided throughout the school district. We did that this year through a couple of emails through Parent Square, where we sent out information to families about all the services that are provided within the district. So that was new to us this year. We'll continue refining that process. And then lastly, lines 122 through 123 state that parents may file a grievance if they feel their rights have been violated in that. So quite a few things in this. That's because the law was very extensive and it addressed quite a few different things. So it's kind of a policy that has a large encompassing kind of cast, if you will. Questions, thoughts?
Yep. Chair Taylor?
Hey,
This is why when I don't interrupt you, then I forget what I was trying to make a note. And if anyone else has a question. feel
okay,
free.
so I'm gonna go just really quickly, knowing that this is a first read. I did have a Mr. McClintock, he is in my zone. He brought forth some really great questions that I was able to grab this afternoon. Because some of these are around our new policy. I'm so sorry, our
Policy 2050?
policy 2050. Yeah. So some of these were around policy 2050. So I forwarded these questions to Dr. Russell just to double check these through legal, because a lot of them are new policy. Our policies have to be complementary, not one should supersede. But Dr. Russell is going to go ahead, answer these questions, reply to Mr. McClintock and the entire board, just so that we have time for appropriate Q&A. I just did not get that to Dr. Russell in time.
Outside of this meeting?
He'll be emailing the
Okay.
questions along with legal's answers to all of you guys, again, just because it looks like our policies have to be complementary. So the answers here are going to be easy to come up with. We just wanted to consult legal on some of them to make sure they were great questions. It was just around like the definitions or guidelines, or if things should be re-referenced. And so, like I said, I wanted to hear from legal on some of these so that you guys can get questions and answers at the same time. Dr. Russell will do that and share those answers with all of you. Also, Mr. McClintock, and then I can read those at our next reading as well. So that's why I chose to share those. And again, just because I didn't open this until this afternoon, just getting back into my email, because it's a first reading, I was able to bring those questions forward, and we'll have time to get legality and just double check that this policy is in line with, and to see if anything needs to be defined since our recent passing of policy 2050.
So this draft has not gone to legal yet?
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, it has.
Yes.
Yeah, we addressed it with legal, had legal look through it and look through the references and things. And there was actually a couple of different policies that we were looking at, but this one, legal, and it said it met all the requirements.
Okay,
The Idaho code.
So
so that it did.
it did. I just felt like, and
Yeah.
Dr. Russell and I, when I looked at those questions, that it would be nice just to have legal weigh in on them. They're
Yeah,
very
I understand,
Yeah.
that, but
Okay,
it's hard
perfect. Just
to
wanted to
hear
make
what
sure.
you're saying when we don't know
Have
what
the
the questions are.
I can actually forward the questions to the entire board. They just won't have answers. So
No,
I can
that's
do that now.
That's fine. I just want to make sure. So that was my one question, is if legal had already had the opportunity to review this. Two, I'm looking at the statute right now, and I have not had a chance to go through here and pick the statute apart, but this reasonable accommodation means a school shall make its best effort, I'm reading from the statute, to enable parents or guardians to exercise their rights. Okay, got that. There's one thing that really did catch my attention on here, and maybe I just need you to help square this with me, Dr. Russell. Requirements not waived. So withdrawing a child from an activity, class, or program required for advancement, that could affect their ability to participate in sports. It could be affect their ability to even graduate. So we have a parent that wants to, has some objection to whatever might be taught in class, so they pull their student out of that class for whatever reason, for whatever amount of time. And if that affects their reason to, it almost seems like they're being forced to do this. You either comply and have your student stay here, or they're not going to be able to graduate. The reasonable accommodation, therefore, but the burden rests with the parent to provide the education there at that point as a stopgap. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, it does make sense, and I understand that. I think going up here, part of it discusses that, the school and the district will work the best they can to a reasonable accommodation if there is a objection to material in the classroom. part of what the school would need to do is to inform the parents that if there is any way of pulling out of the class or withdrawing from the class, how that may impact graduation or eligibility. The school would need to inform the parents of that. The district will do everything it can to help, not penalize a student or a family from that. However, I think the law is just stating that is there. That possibility is there if for some reason there is not a way to work through an accommodation, that there is a ramification that can happen. And I think the law is just trying to let folks know that that is one of the consequences that could occur. I'm trying to avoid that, of course.
So this section, line 97 through 103, requirements not waived, is that verbiage in the statute?
Yes.
Does the statute provide that,
in
hey, if you do this,
Yep.
you might, okay.
Idaho code, it's in
6001 or 6002?
It's
33 dash.
I believe it is in there.
And I'm okay with that. I may not agree with it, but I'm okay with that if that's language in the statute. And it's not something that the district says, hey, you're going to waive the possibility of your student not being able, or your student may not graduate if. Do you know the statute off the top of your head? You know all the other ones.
No pressure. I was just
Could you
actually
recite
looking
it
it up
for-
right now.
33, is it the new ones, 33-6-6001 or 6002?
You're
Parental
very
rights.
close. Yes, I believe so.
And since this is just a first read, I mean, that's something that we can.
Sure, I'm happy to look into it if you
Yeah, and show them all.
Trustee Taylor or Kirkman want to send that question over, and happy to look through it and have legal look through it as well.
So really quick, trustees, I forwarded all of those questions on to you guys, just that entire email thread with Mr. McClintock. And you guys will be able to see there's a lot that just needs to be clarified within policy 2050. And I just think it's going to be best for us to get those answers, with just legal consideration, just to make sure that this policy is in alignment with our others. So those have been shared. If you guys have any other questions, of course, I mean, those can go to Dr. Russell if those bring up any more questions for you after this meeting. You guys are welcome to look at those and review those now. But that has been shared with all of you. And my request was to get those answers to all of us this week. So you guys will have those within plenty of time, because this is a first read.
Chair, if I can say.
Absolutely.
something. No, I love the way this reads. I think it leaves the parents a lot of choices. And they also take accountability if anything happens. And I think that's what parents have been wanting in the state of Idaho. So, I'm glad it went through legal already. So for a first read, I'm ready to move on.
I agree, Trustee Callier, that this does, I like this policy. My concern is that the policy and or the statute at this point, we can't really say in that, but it doesn't paint parents into a corner if they do choose to take their kid out of a class due to some objectionable material. That's my only concern. That's why that waiver, that's why my question about that requirement of waiver was in there. But go ahead, if you were about ready to make a motion and I interrupted you.
No, I wasn't, but I.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Sharon,
Really quick, I
Yeah,
think
go
that
for it.
trustee
Sorry,
would
I
like
just,
the floor for just a sec.
my question is on the surveying around that. I understand the intent behind the law. I just feel like, so what, I mean, and I talked to Superintendent Russell, I emailed a little bit about it. Like, so is a parent gonna get upset if I'm in a classroom teaching and it's Monday and I say, so did everybody have a nice weekend? Did anybody do anything fun? To me, right? And we talked about knowing, like, well, what does that mean? Because that's personal information, right? And so where do you draw the line? Same with similar questions on, I'm just thinking, I'm calling roll in class and I'm like, Joseph, are you here? And he's like, yeah, I go by Joe. And so is that now allowed? Because it doesn't say in the computer that I can call Joseph Joe. And some of you will say like, well, that's silly. Like, of course, yes, could be. But okay, so now what if it's Josephina and she says, I go by Joe, but it's not dictated on the computer that she can be called Joe. And I don't know if we need to put more in our policy. I just think we need to do more work investigating and figuring out what is safe and what is not safe legally because of these things. And I feel like because of the statutes, it is our job to kind of work and oversee that we're ironing through those things, what can be done, because some things that seem really ridiculous, like, yeah, people can just make judgment, a personal judgment, like, but maybe not anymore, right? I mean,
Maybe we ought to define what survey means, because I think just asking a question.
right.
I understand where
So-
you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's a
Chair,
question, like, how was your weekend is not necessarily a survey, but.
Chair the trustees, Trustee Simpson did email some questions. So the way the district handled that this year, because there are a lot of get to know you that teachers give to students so they can understand and learn from their students and help kind of build that relationship and help be able to connect with students the best they can, particularly when it comes to, trying to work through students who may have, discipline issues or academic issues. When you know that student well, it makes the job easier educating them. And being a teacher, I used to get to know my kids in a variety of ways. Because the law does say that the superintendent needs to approve surveys, and the question really is, what is a survey? Where do you draw that line? Is a survey an actual formal thing you take? Is it an informal thing where you ask? What we did this year is we asked administrators to send questions that they had or things that teachers have asked before, and we vetted through those. And what we did is we kind of said, okay, these ones we felt like can be asked. They're not really survey questions, but if anything follows close to this policy, that we would put basically a red mark next to the question, which basically says that the schools need to ask permission before they give those. And it is really hard, as I shared with Trustee Simpson, because the administration's kind of left trying to interpret law of what is personal information for a family. Is asking about siblings and how many siblings you have personal information to a family. Well,
Some would say yes, and some may say no, right?
And it leaves us kind of in a no man's land, trying to do the best that we can, particularly with the new law that was just passed and that. And so I do think there's some things that need to be flushed out from it because it is fairly new. Again, speaking with other school districts and superintendents around, many school districts are starting to adopt it. Felt like we needed to have something as well, since other districts were, and it's part of Idaho code anyways. So we can talk through some of these. And it is kind of a shotgun type of, I call it shotgun type of policy because it has so many different parts that are kind of everywhere. So it's a great question. I think something we still need to work through in trying to meet the law that we're doing right now. What I hope we can improve upon that. And if we have to talk about that, what is a survey in our district, then maybe we talk through that. We could develop a process or a procedure around what a survey is or what isn't. But yeah, it makes it tough right now.
Yeah, it's
So
trying
it
to
is-
understand the legislative
It
intent.
is, and
behind
this
the
is,
statute.
yeah, and this is what's wrong, and this is why I forwarded my questions so that we can flush those out with legal from one of my constituents. But really quick, because that sounded like a lot of talk, I didn't hear anything actionable. So are we asking if we want to define what a survey is? Is that the question here? And I'm only asking because I don't feel like what we just talked about was actionable to give you direction based on what we discussed.
No.
It may not be actionable,
That-
but it's certainly relevant.
I think it's relevant, but again, it's relevant for the discussion, but I'd like to see that go somewhere because I think that this is a policy that a lot of parents have waited for.
Yeah.
I think that this is a policy that parents want to see. I think that we've needed to define it. So that's what I'm asking. Are we saying that it's relevant, but if we discuss it and it goes nowhere, there's no action. We just had a relevant conversation. So do we need to define surveys is the question.
Well, but the relevance will lead to action. And I think there's room for a little bit more discussion here because this is an important policy, especially since I think we kind of understand what the legislative intent was behind this statute. But then when they put it out here, because there's one phrase in this statute that says they use the term well-being questionnaire. That's not in the policy. So maybe those but in the policy, it talks about the, oh, I just covered it up. In the policy, it talks about the individual student sexuality, sex, religion, personal, political, mental, or psychological problems. And I think that's where the well-being type of phrase from the statute comes in, and you're just maybe going into a little bit more detail. I agree with you, Chair Taylor, is that those terms I think need to be defined. And I think we can do that in policy from the statute. Let's define what those terms in the statute mean for the Nampa School District in our policy.
That was actionable. So is that what I hear, trustees, is that are we asking for them to define, are we asking for our administration to bring us back some definition on what surveys mean for the Nampa School District?
So when I think mine is more not so much asking our administration to do that, but asking us as a board to do that.
Okay, that's my question.
Is that's kind of, I guess, more what I was thinking is that
we define
we
surveys.
as a board need to decide. And I know this is why this is so hard for me, because our job is to create the policy. But we have this habit of being like, hey, we're going to task you to find and do the footwork for us and find the policy that other people have and that it's working. And I'm still okay with that. But I do think that it needs to be more of an open ask and more parent involvement in that sense, instead of sending every single survey somebody's going to send out to parents. I'm thinking, hey, parents, talk to us about what questions, are there any questions in this list that you think wouldn't be okay? You know, mark all that apply, right? I mean,
Mark all over the plan like that.
and I wouldn't put all of them, I would chunk them
Yeah.
into smaller
Well, see,
things,
that's
but
the
do you know
thing.
what I'm saying? And I even think that comes with us talking to constituents and folks about, yeah, what is wanted out of this? Because it is for parents, right? And we want that local control to be able to say, this is what our parents have communicated to us about that. And so I don't know if it's working together or creating, a parent group to come in
I
and
was
talk
just-
to us. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know what I'm asking,
You
but
know,
I'm asking
No,
for
they're
broader,
good. I mean,
I
it's-
understand what
It,
you're saying.
yeah, and
too.
it's going down. I think that when you started, what I heard you say is what is safe and not safe for a
Yeah.
teacher to say. That's really what I heard. And then as we're going through it, what I'm hearing is that the board wants to define what surveys are. I just want to make sure that this is a big, big policy. I think there is a lot to it. I just want to make sure as we discuss it, that we're taking off chunks to get to a resolution of what we feel would better this policy for understanding, so that our administration can develop procedure around it. So I just want to make sure, because I hear you as well. I get what we're saying in the discussion. I just want to make sure that I know where we're going with it. If we're going to work to define what surveys are as a board and get that done in, a 2 to 3 read timeframe.
One of the things that worries me on something like this is that you start heading down a rabbit hole, and you can't ever put everything in there that
Right.
you can't find everything, and there's always going to be something that's left out, and that's the one that's going to. So you do have to look for the well-being, and what does that mean? Then try to define what
Yeah.
well-being is, and you're never going to be able to define it that appeases to all of the constituents, parents. So I almost think that maybe staff are in a better position, and maybe they do. I like the work group. I mean, maybe put a teacher and a parent work group together and see if they can just kind of discuss this statute. This came from parents.
Right.
This statute
Yeah.
came from parents.
Correct.
So why not include the parents in the development of what the policy in the Nampa School District will look like based on what the statute is?
Chairman, trustees, I sent you Idaho Code 336001 and 6002 through your email. Since you do participate in the ISBA model policy update surveys, you could also have myself or staff reach out to them to see if they've come up with that to provide to whatever process you guys decide. If staff is working with a group, so they can also see what other districts throughout the entire state, or if they've even developed a model policy for this particular law yet.
I was gonna say, you think they have them?
They
already?
should.
They do.
Yeah.
Do they?
They do have a model
Yeah.
policy. So Chair Taylor, sorry, Trustee Kirkman, they do have a model policy. And administration looked at it, also spoke with several other districts. This came from a different law firm. Just felt like this one kind of concrete sequentially followed the law more.
Yeah.
Because the law hit so many different areas.
I could see
and
that.
I felt like it was a little clearer that way. But happy to share the ISBA model policy as well and to look at that and maybe there's things that the board would like, to add into that or, however you'd like that.
What do you think, Dr. Russell, the feasibility is of putting a quick work group together of a few teachers and some parents and just kind of having more, maybe a starting discussion? I know this is our first read, but maybe a discussion on formulating a little bit more what this looks like, bring some of these terms into focus a little bit more for what.
Yeah, happy to easily could do a teacher one that wouldn't take real long. We could schedule some time with that. The parent one, it probably just depends. We have such a large gamut. How many parents? What zones? Is it one for each zone? Is it from numerous zones? Is it however what guidelines you'd like us to do that? It would help the administration if we had some recommendation from the board. When it comes to the community one, what you guys would like to see in a parent one. But happy to do that. That can be easily done.
And then what is your list of terms that we're looking to define with that as well, if that's the direction?
That's the problem.
Yeah,
I mean, it
that's
could
what's
be-
really
Yeah.
hard. So do we want to start with what constitutes a survey for us?
I think right off the bat, that would be,
Okay,
and just, I mean, we
And
could probably
that's in
Google
alignment with
Google it
defining-
right now and it'd give you that scientific way of whatever.
I could chat GPT it.
Yeah.
Trust you, Maya, that was for you. Really quick, I just want us to be able to, so here's what I'm hearing is we are in first read, so I think this is completely appropriate conversation. There's a lot of questions that we've sent out for answer, and we're suggesting that we get something together like this. I still don't think that it's specific enough to give Dr. Russell direction. I think the conversation is good and we can keep going. I agree this is a big issue. It deserves our time. I just don't know that we have anything totally actionable yet, other than I've sent some questions. We're waiting on legal just again to see how those tie in with policy 2050. And so right now we have what constitutes a survey as that big question. And we want to determine how we're going to get parental or community involvement for that. That's what we've come to so far in taking notes here. I'm letting us know where we're at.
Non-curricular related well-being.
Yeah.
I think health screening is pretty understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like a definition of personal family information.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
well, I'm just going through I'm just starting at the top.
I'm typing all these down, guys, and I've already got the email going to Clerk Lamont and Dr. Russell so that this is written down. So that we can-
Consent, oh, no, it's written permission, that's written consent. I think we understand sexuality, sex, religion, personal political beliefs. No one understands what those are. We'll never be able to know what political beliefs are. Mental or psychological problems.
That's pretty broad.
Do you want more definition on that?
Okay, so really quick, I just don't want to miss anything. Right now
Mental
we
and
have,
psychological problems.
I've got what constitutes a survey, non-curricular related well-being, personal family information, mental
Mental or psychological problems.
Okay.
And then you got personal family information.
Yep.
Yeah, that could be anything really. Individual and or family financial information.
You want those defined?
Yeah. I mean, they already do that now with school lunches, really. Don't they send out a survey or questionnaire and say,
I'm looking at Mr. Stoffer.
and then
They used to. I know that was the.
nobody gives
years
her
ago when I was
permission
in
to get
school,
those in the
but-
mail.
Can I just make a suggestion before we speak in hypothetical and everybody can shoot this down? But realistically, before we start talking about a bunch of stuff that we haven't defined or what we don't do, maybe as we ask for these terms, because like, for example, a lot of the questions that I got, I feel like are going to be covered in policy 2050. So that's why I wanted to forward those over just as a follow-up. So maybe we ask first is surrounding these topics, do we have other policy that when reviewed and mixed with our parental rights policy has Do you guys talk,
Well,
get
and
what I'm
that-
talking
yeah,
about?
there's always collateral.
A tandem, yeah, like a definition or.
There's always
collaboration.
collateral policies when
Right.
it comes to,
So before we define a bunch of intangible things, do we give the administration time to look through our policies that already define these terms first? Just
Well,
again, so we're not reinventing.
put that in there. I think that's something that.
Yeah.
Isn't, by default, you would do
Default.
anyway.
Yeah, right.
But I also now thinking the why. I mean, we can define what these terms are, but why are we doing surveys on family financial information? I'm sure school lunches or something like that would be one reason, but other than that,
Yeah, outside of that,
what are we doing?
I'm looking
So
at-
wouldn't we still,
Nothing in econ or any other content area would really require that. So some of these don't really pertain, and you would ask that question, why would someone
What about
survey?
federal programs?
I mean, I'm sure there's some federal, like
Yeah.
McKinney-Vento.
I was just gonna
there's
say, we
probably
have to do
something
that. I'm
in
assuming
there.
to determine
Some
the
of that is
K-Vento.
federally protected too.
Right.
and
Yeah.
I'm happy I can look into it.
Yeah, and that goes along with that. The legality of asking these questions. Is it protected by federal law that we can't even put some, there's a lot of moving parts into something.
Well,
like
and
this.
some of the, like that, I was really like, I don't know what teacher would ask, or especially if
How
it's
much
not in
does your dad
econ.
make? Yeah.
If it's not in econ, like there's no reason.
Would you
but-
like me to invite Mr. Yarvat and Mr. Stopper up to the podium to be a part of the conversation? It looks like they have some stuff they'd like to add. I did want to.
Squirm in
Yeah, just like this, which I'm totally okay with, but if we want to make it, because this is our time to discuss this.
Sure, Chair Taylor, I don't know if they have anything that they would like to. If they do, they're more than welcome to. I would say of all the questions that were submitted to us, none of them dealt with finance information,
Okay.
sex,
Yeah.
politics, any of those things in that. A lot of them were, what I would think really fall under what's the personal information. Where'd you do this summer? How many siblings do you have? Where do you define personal information? To me, that's not a big deal, but it is personal how many siblings you have or those type of things. And a lot of them just get to know you, so you can get to know your student and what kind of summer they had and what's their favorite thing. So a lot of those, again, like we said, we went through, we said they were fine. If we had questions on them, then we said it's better to be safe, sorry. Go ahead and send something out to the parents and say, these are the questions I'd like to know from your students, and get that permission.
And I think when we're aligning with statute, because it's a statute, again, we're aligning with other issues or problems that other districts may have had. So what I hear you saying is that some of these issues have not yet been issues here. This will obviously prevent that from happening, but we haven't experienced it. Okay?
Who's got the crystal ball? Looking at the future for.
Well, do you guys want me to tell you what we have so far as a request? Basically, I did post a what is safe and not safe for teachers to say, just because I really feel like that was important in the way that you asked it. We're suggesting that we have a work group to define the survey and then the following questions.
The feasibility of a work group.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
want to know the feasibility. Okay,
Yeah.
and
We're
then
not telling
we're-
you to get one together or whatever, but just.
So-
What the.
what I hear then
the
is,
last thing y'all need is more.
and I just want to be sure, because I heard that we want to be way more collaborative in this. And so we are saying, can we define or what constitutes a survey, non-curricular related well-being, personal family information, mental or psychological problems, individual or financial information. And of course, we're directing that we take a look at policies that are already, covering this information or defining it. So from there, what do we want what are we going to do if we're going to take a little bit more in developing this in surveys? Are we going to be sending Dr. Russell feedback? Trustee Simpson, I heard what you said and I totally get what you're saying.
Well, and I would think, it's really the feasibility. I don't know if it's looking at, I think it's looking at the feasibility, but then saying if it is feasible within a month or a month and a half to put together some committees and actually have them go through this and come back to us 2 months from now. Well, to me, then that's not a super obnoxious window to have at a second or third read. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the statute's already there too.
Right, and then the statute will supersede, regardless of whether we have the policy. I know we want to have the policy as soon as we can. I'm not trying to slow that up. I just think there are things that, we do value local control, and that's, to me, the statute is vague. So hopefully we can get that local control to be able to say, yeah, we don't think sending a survey about what's your favorite hobby and do you have any
What you did over
siblings
the
or
summer.
whatever is maybe the biggest deal ever, right?
Yeah. No, I think that these are all
Yeah.
very valid. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we're really good at knowing what
Yeah.
we're looking for together.
This is still a good first read.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, you're back to legal and then you get their take on that requirements, not wait. I think was the other thing
Yeah.
that we wanted to,
Yeah.
at least that was my opinion.
Give me 1 second and I'm gonna
While you're
make
tapping
sure we
along
send this
there,
on.
Dr. Russell, I don't know, I can't remember this, if it was in this school. I know I've seen it before, but when my kids were in elementary school, we would get a pre-survey ahead of, maybe I was just dreaming it, but they would get like something sent from the teacher, like, hey, I got your student in my class. I'm excited for this year. Here's some things that we want to know about your student. And maybe the parents kind of fill that out a little bit too, and kind of help the teacher understand their child a little bit more.
Yeah. So Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, a very common thing that you would maybe do in a back to school night that you would have out on the desk that parents could come and fill 6 or 7 questions about their student that often, dealt with what are the things that they enjoy doing? What are some things that are, hard for them or something like that? So you get that basic information. That's very common.
So I wasn't dreaming.
And at elementary schools, no, it's pretty common that that's been done in some form or not. Again, to trying to get to know students is the key. And we got to allow our staff the ability to do that because it does pay huge dividends when you're working with children to understand them and what makes them click and what their strengths are and stuff like that.
Great.
Okay, trustees, I'm just going to give you the email that's headed off to Clerk Lamont and Dr. Russell so that, of course, our clerk will disseminate this information appropriately. And it just says, what is the feasibility of putting a work group together to define the following? What is safe and not safe for teachers to question children on in the get to know you setting? What constitutes a survey? How do we define survey? Non-curricular related well-being, personal family information, written mental or physiological problem or psychological, thank you. Individual or financial information, and then take a look at policies that already cover the definition. And then what was your question regarding legality, Trustee Kirkman?
The requirement of waiver. It's in the statute, I believe. He was just going to square that with legal.
Yeah, I'll just review it. I know what Trustee Kirkman says.
Okay, is there anything else that you guys want me to send?
Not for this first reading, from my
This, yeah.
perspective. I think that's a good start.
I would agree. And then my questions have been shared, so I'll press send on this. So at this time, if there is no other conversation or questions, I will entertain a motion.
Chair, I move that we do a first read on Board Policy 2180, parental rights.
Second.
Okay,
Do we need to include the, or is that already there?
include.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I was trying to focus on my email that I was
You're
sending.
just gonna run this whole meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
You
was
just
trying.
pass it. Nobody opposed.
I would, yeah, it's just that, yeah. That's great.
No.
I was trying to focus on what I had written here. I'm really sorry, you guys, to get it off. All right. So with that being said, we are going to move into the information items and reports. And we're going to go to A Zone 3 trustee vacancy. Dr. Russell?
Chair Taylor, trustees, before you tonight is just a kind of reminder of the timeline. And you'll see the applications were due for the open trustee seat on August 11th. We received 6 applications from that. Tonight's a chance to review those applications and process the interviews that will be taking place on Wednesday. So you'll see the applications, I believe, are posted there. And the questions. And so
Trustees, really
Clerk
quick.
Lamont, if that's what you would like the board to do, I'm happy to.
Yeah, trustees, really quick before we ask questions. Clerk Lamont, do you want to explain our packets?
Yes. So in the blue packets that I provided you guys today, there are all 6 applications hopefully they're in alphabetical order. That was my goal when I was putting them together today. There's sample questions that were you guys were provided last time you appointed a trustee. So the 6 applications, sample questions, and then there are 3 different documents at the back for sample new board member orientation, responsibilities of a Nampa school district trustee aligned with your guys' policy. So the policies included for that, and also possible board norms that also align with your policy, just as some documents that we could provide once you appoint someone. But the board also discussed at previous meetings that, and this is where we kind of need you to give us some direction, is wanting patron input after the candidates' interviews, which will be conducted on Wednesday at 6 p.m. in this room, and they will be live streamed as a courtesy. But also opening up like what you did last time. If we want to have a special meeting on Monday the following week, or sometime to allow emails to come in for patron feedback, and then having a special meeting to hopefully appoint a candidate. They would take their oath of office at the next regular meeting, which is September 18th.
So trustees, along with that, in this particular packet and some stuff that we're hoping to email out to you after this is just some stuff on best practice, so that when we onboard our new trustee, it is super welcoming. And we're hoping to define a little bit more on what part of the administrative team will work with the trustee as we move forward. So our goal is to have something to you guys above and beyond these suggestions probably next week. Myself, Dr. Russell, Clerk Lamont, those are some of the things that we've been meeting about in our weekly meetings, just so that we're way more prepared to bring this trustee on, and we want our trustee to feel like part of the team right away. And we want to just develop some best practices, because I didn't love my onboarding. So that's how it's working. So that's some of the other stuff that you'll find in the packet, and some more stuff that will be emailed as well.
And I will also verify that I did all the candidacy verifications through the county, and they are all able to move forward.
Chair,
Yes.
we did such a good job last time. And obviously we chose the right person.
It was trustee buying. For all the confusion, it was Mark himself.
I am wondering, if we think of a different question that's not in here, do we mail it to you guys for approval?
Actually, those are just sample questions that we had given you. I did not watch the video recently to see if you asked those questions. I believe last time we allowed each board member to ask 1 to 2 questions, no more than 2. And then each candidate will be interviewed at the exact same time as a round robin who goes first. So since there's 6, it could take some time. We'll start with them to do an introduction. If you do have a different question that you are entertaining, if you do email them, or if you want me to type them up, just give me a call and I can provide them at the desk to all the board members once they arrive.
But the same questions need to be asked to each candidate.
Each candidate will be answered the same questions, and they'll be all in the same room, sitting together as they answer. We'll have candidate 1 answer first, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Then the next question, candidate 2 will answer first.
Yes, so the order will change.
And I want to give point of clarification. Everything in your packet is merely a suggestion, so that you guys could start more equipped to have this information. It does not have to be from this list. We just wanted as much information in front of you guys as possible. And we wanted you to have a full packet to be better prepared, because we do have 6 candidates. And we start those interviews on Wednesday this week at 6.
I do think, and I think I remember that we did send our 1 to 2 questions, one to make sure that one of us is not asking the same question as somebody else.
We did, to Clerk Lamont.
I also I think you sent those, didn't you, Clerk Lamont, to the candidates, the questions, or no?
No, I just printed them out for you to ask them.
At the meeting.
Yes, I think we did the timeline right before. The only thing, they answered the questions that were
Were in
provided
the-
in the application.
Okay. I'm just not opposed to giving them the question ahead of time to be prepared.
We did not do that.
But I don't know. I mean,
But
That's
but
the
I'm
purpose
also,
of an interview.
I'm not-
I'm more with trustee Kirkman on that one. I
I'm
think we've
not-
gotten some written, I like the interview.
Surprise.
Surprise.
shock.
Yeah.
What we could do is if you have 2 or 3, I would say last time, I believe there were a couple that each board member did choose. So if you narrow it down to 2 or 3, I can rank those and put those in a sheet in front of you.
Well, some of the
If-
questions might be similar.
They
so
are
that's-
very
yeah.
similar, and you can also provide a different question that's not on the list. If you could have those to me by Wednesday at noon, that gives you a little bit of time, and then I can have them printed by 6 for you.
okay.
So do we want to discuss changing the process? Because trustee Simpson, you've been heard. I'm gonna tell you that I'm much more with trustee Kirkman on that.
I'm not opposed to
Okay.
either way.
Either way.
I
I just
just
wanted to
was,
make sure that you-
wanted to make sure we gave
Yep.
enough time if that
Got
was what we were doing. I couldn't remember.
Got it?
So I say we stick with this. I know it's not an action item, but we
Yeah.
stick with this process to
Yeah.
move it along.
And I'm okay with that. Yep.
And then just keeping in mind that we're gonna be sending you more stuff to add to your fantasy blue folder. Because that way we can start to really work on an onboarding process. I would really like to have that done because we have elections coming up. I know, but we do have elections coming up, and I think the onboarding process for a trustee is super important. And I think that we could fast track that a little bit more so that our trustee gets up to speed, is able to start developing their own personal relationships with our administration. So please look for those, add those to your packets for discussion so that we can have consensus.
So since we're on B, upcoming elections, when's the filing deadline after?
Excellent. So I did include the timeline. The candidacy filing opens August 28th. The deadline does close on February 8th at 5 p.m. August 28th to September 8th. Did I say February? Long day. I'm so sorry.
February.
September 8th. And then it does have, I included the steps in your packet about how the paperwork should be filled out. I also included the election calendar in your packet. I did also include the candidacy forms just in case patrons are interested. When I talked to Brandy Long with the Canyon County, she sent those so that would make it more transparent, ease for our possible candidates. And I do believe trustee Valle said to Valle, I'm getting closer. Said that he is still considering possibly putting his name in for a candidate as a candidate as well.
Well, your window,
Tonight, I
your
believe
window's
that's
about to
tonight.
open. The window is about to open and shut pretty quick.
So it's hers.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Before we continue, Dr. Russell, anything on B from our administrative team?
Nope.
Okay, so all of that is there. I know that that information has also been shared out. I just have a quick question. And I don't want to be assuming, but I'm sure that this is in the works because I feel like Tyler makes everything look exciting. But my assumption would be that we're going to be sharing this through our social media, that we already are set up to have all these updates go out so that people understand the process and the timeline.
Can I, I'm just gonna add a best practice. It does indicate they must have, must have 5 signatures of registered voters from within their zone. Best practice is always to get a couple more just in case they aren't registered at that particular address, just in case, because if they don't and they turn it in on September 8th at 4 p.m., they might not have enough time to go get those other signatures. So just a best practice moving forward.
Also, just a reminder that yes, they may be a registered voter in their zone, but they don't count as a fifth.
Thank you.
They
But they're-
themselves, yeah.
They themselves, but other registered voters in their household can count.
So I feel like this is very good best practice information. Okay,
So I was gonna say this, but I feel like it fits. I was thinking this new board orientation, I don't know what the plan was, but I think it would be really good to do it in a meeting with all current trustees and the newly appointed board member, mainly because we do have an election coming up. So it would be one more opportunity for those candidates to sit in and also hear, just because taking on this job, you do get a lot of information and the more you can get information to process. So relating to looking at anywhere from possibly 2 to 3, you know.
Would you do me a favor and share that feedback with both Dr. Russell and Clerk Lamont? Just because what we were really working on is something that not just time with our trustees, but also time with, like, if they needed to talk facilities, then they're going to go meet with Mr. Stoffer, right? Obviously, they're going to have some time with Mr. Dewey. So it was one of those things, right? Well, we all know that that's going to happen, but it was one of those things where I think that Dr. Russell has a document that I really loved where we've started some of that work on the org chart and then who they would talk to. So if you'll just do me a favor and articulate that thought to them so that they can incorporate it with the material so that when we give you back that outline, does that make sense what I'm asking?
And I think,
Thank you.
And
I just don't want to lose what you said
trustees,
and having it go directly to them. They could.
I also think Trustee Simpson is thinking about, maybe I'm wrong, more of a 5,000 overview.
Which
overview of like, these are the technology needs that you need. These are the, and then a deeper dive, but making sure expectations are clear.
And I think that once you see all the documents that have been like worked on, I think a lot of that will be answered because we gave an ability to give that 500, 3,000 foot view of here's how this works, trustee experience, talking to your board, talking to your chair, but then also here's really how it's going to help for you to meet with the administration. And here's how it's really going to help you get this information. Here's who's going to have this information. So our goal with that was just to really organize it, I guess, if nothing else. And then making sure, like, I think that technology gaps are a little different for everybody. So that arose, here's where you would go automatically. So if you throw that in, I think you guys are going to love what you see. And it's been so thorough between Dr. Russell and Clerk Lamont. I can't even express to you guys. I feel like we have a good recipe for success.
Love it.
Trustees, is that all for this? So can I ask Dr. Russell to move on to C, school boundaries? Everybody good with that? Okay, Dr. Russell, C.
Chair Taylor, trustees, tonight I'm going to go into a discussion around school boundaries. This has been a discussion that we've had a little bit before, and this has been a priority for the board for quite some time. What we'd like to do tonight is to share with you a draft process of what that may look like. So it is just a draft process. I'm going to have Mr. Stoffer will come and share that with you in just a moment. Prior to that process starting, though, there is a really important decision that the board would need to make, and that would be determine what number of schools would be to build boundaries for. Currently, right now, we have 24 schools, and the board would need to determine, are we building boundaries for 24 schools or 22 schools or 23 schools? And this process that we'll discuss, we'll share with you, will be based on that. This process is a process that came from HPM. HPM was the company that helped us do our facilities report. If you remember last year, they came in and looked at all of our facilities. They rated our facilities based on the actual physical condition, but also on the educational adequacy of the facilities. And this is a process that they have worked with school districts around the country with. A local one here was Boise about 6 or 7 years ago, went through this similar process when they redrawn boundaries for their district that worked with a bond that they had passed. So I'm going to have Mr. Stoffer come on up and have him kind of walk us through this draft process. Again, this is only a draft process. Happy to get feedback on it, but just thought we would come share with you what that might look like, what it might entail, and then happy to answer and just to have more questions and discussions after.
Board of Trustees, Dr. Russell did a really good job of explaining and front-loading you with the document. In your packet, you'll find a document that was a summary of several conversations with HPM, looking at the process to give you an idea of the steps that we would go through. The focal point of this process really is to be a community-based process. If you'll notice that we're really looking for participants in the community to come in and help us with this. This would not be driven by the district office. It would not be driven by administration. It really be driven by our community. Now, there would be guardrails that we'd want to put up to help in the process, to give some instructions with that. As you have the document in front of you, the first step really is setting up some of those guardrails. We would look and provide some information for the groups that would be participating in this around population. What are the size of campuses that our schools can handle? what's the student population that we want inside of our schools. The next, we'd look at the SES, basically looking at the socioeconomic status of the different groups that would be there. Our SPED population, want to be conscious of our SPED programs and being able to service the needs of kids. ELL programs, same type of structure. We want to make sure that we have the right services for kids that have those needs. And then any special programs that we have. Currently, we have some special ed programs that are specialized in different levels, and we would give some guardrails based off of that. That would lead us to step 2, is once we have that information, we would start populating that into some software that would be used as part of a computer program for the groups to manipulate and to create boundaries on their own. So that would be step 2. Step 3 would be communicating with our public and really searching for multiple teams that would be willing to participate in this activity to help build the boundaries. There we have the amount of teams can fluctuate. This is just, again, a rough draft of where that could be. We really would like to have students a part of this. We'd like to have building administration a part of it, parents, community members that have vested interest in the schools to be a part of it, and then some staff as well. So those 4 groups are really what we'd be focusing on to attract to be a part of this process. After we have made those teams, we move on to step 4. Step 4 is where these teams would meet. They do need a good chunk of time. So you notice that there's a 2 to 3 hour meetings. That again, just based off of experience from other school districts, that they needed to have that time to sit down, to have conversations, to draw it up, to be able to play with the program. So as they start to build it, they're like, oh, that works, or no, that doesn't work, and be able to manipulate it and have conversations inside that group of how to meet those guardrails. At each of those meetings, one of the activities that we do afterwards, or suggested to do afterwards, is to do an overlay of what was decided at that meeting. So you can see common areas that people that are all, what are areas that everybody's in agreement with, and start to build from there, just to show the group that they are moving forward in the progression on that. Ultimately, after 3 or 4 meetings, the suggestion is that you'll get probably as far as you're going to get at that juncture with having that many groups of what the commonalities are. At that point in time, the maintenance facility team that has operated in the background previously to this with the community members building some of the other information that you have been presented last year, we just look to make sure that we have fulfilled some of those needs and making sure that it's in line. We would give any recommendations back from the facilities maintenance team, and then we would bring that back to the board to be able to see what the teams have accomplished. So again, there's a good process through there. It's one that has been done several times and very focused on the community helping us build this. So that is in a nutshell the steps.
Thank you, Mr. Stopper. I'm sure that we all have questions. Is that correct, Trustees? Yeah. So really quick, what I want to ask is I see that the first request is that the board has to determine what school, whatever we decide to take offline. What I'm seeing there is that September to November would be to review the data to determine what schools to take offline. So my understanding is that's data that we've already collected that you guys would be presenting to us, whether it be, capacity, all this other information here for us to consider. And that decision has to be made prior to your beautifully laid out process.
Chair Taylor, that is accurate. We really
Okay.
need to make sure that as we start to get these teams involved, they know what they're building boundaries for.
Okay.
Really, it is the key
Yep.
piece
Fair
for
question.
the rest of the process.
Okay.
If it is 24 buildings, then they know what we're doing. If it is, like Dr. Russell said, anything lower than that, we need to know which ones those are to help us in the process, because location of schools in this process does matter. You do like that local component that you're going to a school that is in closer proximity to you. So there's a component of that will be the community will be looking at as well. So we do need to know which buildings that are online or offline for this process.
Okay.
Chair Taylor, if I could just kind of elaborate on that just a little bit for the board to understand. Things that we would look at is our previous facilities report, which had some recommendations on that already. We would kind of review that. We probably would also look at our current enrollment and where enrollment is. I'm happy to share with the board a very, very rough look at where we are with enrollment, but that will play into it. We have talked numerous times about the financial cliffs that we have coming up with the ESSER dollars leaving, with our supplemental levy, with the enrollment versus ADA switch, and then determining whatever happens with our federal dollars. All of those will play an impact into it too. So the things to really look at are, the condition of the buildings, really where are they at? Obviously, some are older than others. Our current enrollment, do we need 24 buildings for the amount of kids we have? And then how does, if whatever we determine, how does that play into the actual finances that we have? And can we afford to have schools at certain sizes versus other sizes? I think those are the things that we'll need to talk through and look at to determine that number.
So sure, just quickly. So just because we pick a certain school and its boundaries doesn't mean it has to be changed. It means that it's going to be looked at to see if it needs to be changed, right?
Trustee Valle, that is accurate. Again, this is based on the needs that we kind of set up the guardrails for. And so depending upon the guardrails that we set up, how many buildings, those are the things that Dr. Russell just shared with you, that would be what we need to have set up. As they go through the process, they could leave a boundary completely intact if it fits the needs and the criterion that we put forward.
So it almost seems like if we were to say these schools don't touch, we may be restricting you from actually doing the job that this is intended to do. So it almost seems to me that we should just leave it open so that you guys can give us a good look and a good recommendation, because ultimately we're going to have to vote on that. And people are going to obviously come and share their opinions. So interesting.
You asked the question I was going to ask, but that brought up another one. So does the school district do projections on enrollment? And if so, how does that work and how far out?
Sure. Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, the district did do a projection back in 2018 on where the district's enrollment would be. And it was a 10-year projection. And back then what they mentioned is after about 4 or 5 years, it begins to become really, really fuzzy. And what happened with that, our projection, we have actually been pretty spot on. We have dropped enrollment every year as projected. What they did to determine that projection was based around live births within the city. They looked at census data in the city. They looked at building permits in the city. And there was one other criteria, but they collected all of that, did the enrollment projection. At that point, I think we were around 14,500 students. And they said by around this time, we would be under 13,000. And that is accurate. I believe we are going to be under 13,000 for the first time. And that's a drop of about 1,500 kids over a 6 or 7 year period. So we're happy to kind of share that again. Now, I wanted a renew of that. What are we going to look like in the next, knowing that it's already 6 or 7 years out? What they said is because of COVID, it has really made it difficult. And it may not be worth the finances to spend on something like that, because they could try doing all that, but they couldn't really guarantee the accuracy if that would be, something to think through. So at this point, they recommended holding off, letting things get back to more normal so that they could kind of relook at that again.
When you say they, you're talking HPM.
HPM, yeah. We worked, it was actually a different company, but it was Tracy Richter, who owns HPM, is the one who started that with us.
Do they do projections on elementary, middle, high school?
They did. And what we saw, and we're happy to review this with you again.
We'll get to it sometime.
And we're seeing that. Early 2000s, historical in Nampa, building and growing a lot. A lot of young families moving in, a lot of kids. That bubble started going through our system, particularly right after the first recession, the 2008, 2009 recession. That slowed down, and we really haven't seen that pick up since then. And now a lot of those kids are graduating. So we have larger graduation classes leaving than we do kindergartens coming in. And we're seeing that evident right now. Our kindergarten that came in is 870 students, when historically we had been well over 1,000. Even last year at 970 in kindergarten. So we're 100 down this year. Hopefully we'll collect a few more, as we just started, but we typically don't collect more than a handful. It's not like hundreds that won't come.
Trustees, just as a reminder, on our facility maintenance report, if you want to look at a glance at it, we do have it on our website for you. It's that big 80-page document that has all that fun stuff in it. Really at the very beginning, I think it's the first 20 pages, you'll get most of the information that we're just reviewing with you right now. Just if you want to look over it before we dig into it a little bit more.
Well, and trustees, if you can see, they've laid out for us September to November to really gather the information that we as trustees feel that we need to make a decision of this magnitude. And what we are going to have to look at, and we've been walked through this, is our individual school attendance. We get those reports frequently. So that information now is just coming into play so that we can take some time really forensically looking at it to determine if we're going to take something offline. The fiscal impact of that. So I can see us over the next few months being very reliant on grabbing information from Mr. Stauffer, Mr. Dewey, talking to our superintendent. Most of this information has been presented, but at different times. So hear me when I say, I think that we've reviewed all of this never at one time totally. So there may be more questions or more asks that you have. So please know that it's reaching out that's going to help you gather the information, because we're all going to be different levels of understood on this.
I think a work session would be, I think this is a great opportunity to, I hate to say another meeting, but honestly, a work session, this is the perfect opportunity because one, we're going to be relying on staff to provide recommendations of what schools. You're the experts in this, honestly. It's a board decision, but you're the experts in saying this is where we see the movement here and the students and whatever. So I think a work session would be appropriate to at least start the conversation. Because, if four of us are asking staff at different times the same questions, that's just a
work
good
session,
use of your time and our time.
I think that a work session is good once we decide to the level of solve that each of us are, and then keeping in mind that we will also have a new trustee through this work session. So I just think it's going to really require a lot of directive for us on the things that we want covered, because we're going to have varying different degrees of knowledge.
Come to the work session prepared.
Sure. Come to the work session prepared, but also if we want to re-look at the facilities plan, that's long.
Yeah,
That's a presentation. If we want to see something that has to do with budget, that's long, that's in presentation. So I want to prevent a 6-hour work session that leaves us more confused or more paralyzed. This is a big choice. To take a school offline is a huge choice. And it's gonna carry a lot of emotion no matter how you slice it. So I just want us to give more direction than we just need a work session, so that we can be very prepared for what we'll see there for anybody who feels unsolved about maybe what we won't see there. Or if we're going to say that we're going to do a work session, bring us what you have, then we can be prepared to do another work session if possible. I just really like some solidarity in this plan, I guess, just because this is a very, very big decision.
Chair Taylor, if from the administration's perspective, if we were to have a work session, things that we could review is to go through the facilities report again, to look at the FCI of each of the schools, their condition, their educational adequacy. That would be very easy to do. We could look at the enrollment of where we are, where we've came in, the accuracy of how that projection has been the last 5 or 6 years. We could do that. What I don't think we could do at this point is I could not tell you what the levy is going to do when it comes to that financial issue. We could actually share with you finances about what it would look like taking a building offline. Where would that save the district? We could calculate that. I couldn't predict what will happen when it comes to a levy or what the new funding formula will be. After November 1st, I could tell you where our first 10 weeks is and what that will do for staffing and earnings. So some of these are still unknowns. I won't have that information if we have a work session in September. But we at least can provide some pretty concrete things on a couple of those. But those financial cliffs do play into this decision in some way that it's hard to predict, because I just don't know where we're going to be.
Well, even the reallocation of resources from a school that might, if it was this school and we reallocate all these FF&E, I don't know what you guys call it in the district, over to this school, how much money would that save us?
Yeah.
And
We definitely could do that. And we are seeing some schools that are very small that are inefficient in a way, meaning that we have to spend some, there's certain class sizes that work out where you need 2 teachers there, which makes the classes very small. But if their schools were combined, maybe it'd be more efficient to have larger classes. And I'm not trying to say we want large classes, but you do have to look at the money that you're allocated, the amount of teachers that you can find and hire, particularly in our environment, because it's getting more and more difficult to find that. And we did a good job this year. Kudos to our HR team and everybody. But that's some of the challenges that we need to look to as we could look at the future of the district.
Trustees, anything else? I've got some things I want to throw out, but I, of course.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think a work session is necessary, but we come to that work session prepared.
Yeah.
We do our
So
homework.
I think what we need to ask now is, knowing that Clerk Lamont, when do we appoint our vacant seat? September?
We're hoping that the new trustee that may be appointed would be taking their oath of office on September 18th.
So trustees, do we want to try to schedule that work session right after that oath to be preparatory to have a full
I think
board?
as soon as possible.
Or do we want to try to schedule it even before that and then?
Yeah, I don't mind before. I
Trustee,
think it's
Either
to be-
either way.
Chair
Yeah.
Taylor,
We've got a short time.
Yeah, we've got a really short time. That's why I'm asking.
I believe the board more than likely is going to also have to schedule a special meeting depending on the conversation on your next subject
Mhm.
as well. So it might be prioritizing and figuring out if you can align that with an additional topic. If the board decides to possibly put a supplemental levy on the ballot, they would need to have a special meeting prior to the 18th to also do that. So it might be prioritizing meetings and working with your guys' schedules as well.
So guys, in looking at the calendar for reference, are we trying to say that we would like to go ahead and let's see, before the 18th, and I agree, it carries such weight. That gives us next week. Do we want to try to say that the week of September 4th, that we want to direct getting together possibly that special meeting as well as a work session?
That's next week.
Well, it's the
No,
21st.
2 weeks
It's 2 weeks from now. So September 4th. So today is the 21st.
Oh.
Let me look at what you're looking
I'm
at.
already,
Oh, I was like, let me see what you see.
I'm in December.
So yeah, let's stay out of December. Let's move into August. It's the 21st.
So.
Next week is the 28th.
So you're
So if
talking
we say the
Labor
week of the 4th, or if we don't want to do that, we would have the week of the 11th.
We'll have to look at my.
Okay, but what I'm asking is do we want to direct it to be that quickly?
I think
don't
sooner
we
the
need to-
better.
The sooner the
I
better.
agree with trustee Valier. The sooner
Okay.
the better. We can start
So
this
I think
conversation.
that what we're saying is that we would like to see a meeting.
Before
We
the
want to come prepared. I would love to see an agenda for STED meeting ASAP so that I can give some feedback if there's something more that would like to be added. So Clerk Lamont, if you can work with our free schedules to create this meeting, that would be great. And then Dr. Russell, we'll look for you to send out that agenda, and then trustees will give feedback for more that we would want to see on that first round agenda. And then if you are a trustee and you are in the audience, my suggestion would be to just either be present. All of our meetings are open to the public so that you can watch that meeting, because work sessions are extremely important for the decisions that we make, or to watch it online. Is there anything else that we want to cover on this topic, trustees, or are we ready to move forward? Trustees, Dr. Russell. Okay, great. All right, wonderful. We will now move into supplemental levy D. Dr. Russell.
Trustees, before you tonight is a review of some of the discussion that we had in the July board meeting. We shared with you some draft proposals, what a supplemental levy might look like. We shared with you some of the needs that the district may have if a supplemental levy were to be run. I'm trying to download the PowerPoint here. Tyler, can you bring that up? Maybe it's faster than my machine. There was one request by Trustee Simpson, and we did include that as well for the board to kind of talk through and look at. Again, this will just, if you see right there in your screen, just shares what our current supplemental levy is. The main pockets of the supplemental levy are around $3.3 million of staffing, $2 million in technology, $1.5 million or 1.3 million in curriculum. And then we have some things around playground security, transportation, athletics and activities, and community engagement in early childhood. If you go to the next slide, Tyler, I believe is, that's the cost. Can we go to the options again? There we go. Just a reminder of some options put together, and these are just again were drafts that we came forward with some of the needs. Option one is the request that Trustee Simpson had last time, just currently what is on our levy. I think Mr. Dewey had shared. He's around here somewhere. He'll share the cost with us when we walk in there. Option two, just a couple of differences there. One has to do with a request of extra in security to look at getting more officers for our elementary schools. You'll see there's a bump there. You'll see there's an increase in the activities. A lot of that has to do with just the sheer cost from inflation. And then you'll see there's a bump in early childhood as well. And I believe curriculum, and that has to do with inflation. So that was option two. Option three has to do, just the difference between option 2 and 3 is the supplemental salaries. That is something that is currently right now on our general fund, meaning the money that we pay for supplemental salaries to coaches and activities comes out of our general fund. The idea would be to put that on supplemental levy, which would open up money for our general. That would allow the negotiations team to look at moving to a career ladder, which would be beneficial for the district. So that's on there. You'll see curriculum technology, again, will stay the same based on that increase for inflation. You'll see the cost for activities is again, 600, again, that increase for inflation. This one includes the security as well. And then there's an ask for some turf, and that may look kind of funny. Why would you ask for turf? Part of that is we believe it could do a couple of things. One, our athletics and activities are really a shining star of our district. This would allow us to use our facilities and make it be up to par with some of the other communities and allow our kids to have the best facilities. It would also help when it comes to water and maintenance. And it would also maybe give us the possibility to sell some advertising on some of those that may recoup some of that cost. And so for a couple of reasons, we felt like that could be something on there. Again, just a suggestion. And then option 4 includes all those very same things. The only difference is tennis and track. And I want to be a little clearer maybe than I was in the July meeting. Our tennis and tracks right now, some of our tracks are falling apart. And we are not able to fund repairs for all of those facilities. So what we had talked about is if we had some extra funds, we could repair those and keep them as they are. If not, we may be, and I'm going to look at Mr. Stauffer and Mr. Yarborough, what we'd likely have to do is look at shutting some tracks down and asking other programs to go to another facility to have that be our track venue, and look at putting our money into one track rather than 3 tracks, or one tennis court rather than these 6 tennis courts that we have. And that can be problematic for programs. We just talked about softball today that doesn't have their own field. We'd hate to continue down that road of not having their own courts for a certain high school or their own track for a certain high school. But that might be what we're looking at because the expense of replacing those is just extremely high, and it's getting higher as we go on. I'm going to look at those guys. Am I forgetting anything? Okay.
Just the major project on our report.
Oh, excuse me. And the last one was maintenance projects. That is really just trying to keep our buildings up to speed. So a great example is that I was just walking last week, East Valley. We had spent some time painting East Valley. It had been 20 years since East Valley had been painted, and it was really showing. Did a really wonderful job. The paint job looks amazing, but it makes the carpet look terrible. Just so many 20 years of middle schoolers, and you'll understand. Even though we've cleaned it and as much as we can, the lifespan of that carpet is really getting towards the end of its life. And so that $2 million allows us to do those type of projects. It allows us to kind of work on upgrading some of the things that we can do to just to make sure that we're being good stewards of the buildings that we have so that East Valley can last another 20, 25, 30 years. But so that is on that as well.
Dr. Russell, just because we have some new board members, can we walk really quickly through if we were to approve a levy, there's a little bit more process with that because there's some other things that we'd have to get to the city or excuse me, to the county and things along those lines. Can you run through that really quick?
I'm going to ask Mr. Stoffer if
Great.
he would. Yes, absolutely happy to do that. He can share that kind of process.
Board of Trustees, our timeline for this really is based off of you collecting the information you need, using the information that we provided you to come into a proposal for the county. We have until September 18th to have a draft and the language submitted through the levy attorneys that we utilize to get the correct language. There's a specific language that we have to use to be able to place on the ballot. And we have until September 18th to do that.
We have until September 18th for the board to approve
Prove
it.
it.
So it would need to be in the board packet
Before.
prior and approved, just
Yeah.
so that you are aware, because we have
So
to
there
do
have
it.
to be a special meeting. That's
Or you could approve it the night of your regular meeting. We would just have to send it immediately. And
We would have a fun time getting that over to the county.
right, and you would also want to make sure that you know exactly what your amounts are by then, because we would also, if you were to change it, we would have to run it through legal to make sure it is correct.
And part of the law, we do have to be specific about what we are placing the levy money for. So again, that the specificity that we've used in here is really important for us to make sure for gathering that information, turning it over to the attorney so they can get the right language put onto the ballot for us.
And being as specific, does that mean that you have to tell them what specific school this money is going to be used for?
Your projects, you want to talk about your projects.
So, because I'm looking at the school, but I'm thinking about the school boundaries and we decide to shut a couple of schools out. So whatever happens, and we're thinking about putting money into those schools. Where does that money go? We can just put it somewhere else?
as long as it's like for maintenance.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Board of Trustees, that's why we had it in the maintenance. There's some different things we can identify for the building maintenance. Now, we do have a laundry list of things that could be spent on. Again, if we look at our report, we have a great report
Mr.
that shows us
Stopper, really
what we need.
quick. Tyler, can I have you bring up that levy just so we can look at it as Mr. Stopper speaks? I think the visual helps when we're thinking more in terms of project. I just think the visual is very important because it's a big money conversation. Sorry, Mr. Stopper.
Not a
please
problem.
continue.
And our goal is to take whatever option or what other package that the board decides, and we will break it down and put it into that pie chart that you saw at the very beginning so that there'll be some understanding of where we do that. So transparency is there. But really the idea comes down to is if we're doing the backwards by design, is looking at the 18th as our date that we need to have that language turned into the county and approved. We have that, we have about 6 weeks, no, 7 weeks that we need to be able to put all this information together. So if you look on each of those categories, that's really what we would need to put into the levy language, are those categories that we have listed for you.
And if the board approves to move forward with this, it would be the November election,
Correct.
because didn't the legislature remove
They did.
the May?
Trustee Kirkman, that is correct. They removed one, and our purpose of doing that, and I know Dr. Russell could probably speak to this a little bit more, is really has to deal with planning for the next year. We need to have this information. We need to put it out there for the public to have a response to our request if the board decides, and that will help us in our future planning.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so just Chair Taylor and trustees, what Mr. Stoffer mentioned is the levy with $3 million being in staffing. If that were not to be there, then we'd have to plan in the spring of what that's going to look like. And that's quite a few positions in the district, including classified and teachers. That's anywhere from 45 to 60, depending on salaries and that kind of thing. That's a good number on top of the financial issues with ESSER. So that may play into, as I just mentioned, around the boundaries thing of where we might need to look at trying to save some resources and some finances in that way as well. So a lot of these play together, but the November election would give us an idea of what we need to do and what steps we need to do. If not, then there is one more chance in May. It was the March election that was taken off. So May could be an opportunity to run.
They cut are going close.
Correct.
Dr. Russell, Mr. Stoffer, anything more to present, or are we ready to open
Just
up for questions?
if one more slide, I'm going to try to walk us through this. Mr. Dewey may correct me if I'm inaccurate, but just looking at costs, again, this is something that we reviewed in July. If you look at each of them, you'll see that there was 3 basic debts that the district had around supplemental levy, and then there was a bond, and then there was a tort payment. With the new law that was passed, the state is paying districts, and the district would receive enough money to pay off our bond. So we would no longer have bond debt. And I think as you look at those options, you'll see the line is cut through that, which really brings down the overall tax levy amount that we would be asking. So the dollar amounts that you see on the previous slide, the actual amount patrons would be paying would be less because of that. And I'm going to have Mr. Dewey maybe explain that in a little more detail if you want to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're actually explaining it right here. Not that he hasn't done a great job. I apologize. Not to say that. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I would never tell my boss that he's not getting it right.
Watch it.
Actually, will you go down back 4 slides for me, please? One more. Right there. So actually, this is where Dr. Russell was actually talking about our money from the state. So we actually received $4.9 something million this year. We thought we were going to be about 5.6, but the state revenues didn't come in as projected. So we got 4.9. So what we're going to do this year is we're actually we're still going to levy. The way the new law reads is that you're supposed to take down from your bond what you would normally bring out down from your bond, that 4.9 or $5 million, and that's reducing taxes for our patrons. What we have the ability to do this year is if we only pull down another $4.5 million of additional levy, with that additional $5 million we're getting from the state, we will be debt free at the end of this fiscal year. So at that point in time, now if you want to go forward, keep going to the other one, sorry. Right here. So at that point in time, you notice there's no bond anymore. But example, the 14.7 now in that line item in that top corner is 9.78. It's $5 million less. So what we can do, the law states if you don't have bond debt, it then goes towards your supplemental levy. So we can take that supplemental levy, that $5 million, and put it right towards how much we have in supplemental levy. If we don't have a supplemental levy, then it has to go for public works projects. Okay. So our hope here, my hope is by not having any bond, pulling that little amount of 4.5 this year, paying off the rest of our bond, we can use the entire thing this year for the next year. I apologize, and it will lower any supplemental levy ask we have by $5 million a year. So that's a big chunk of money. As you can see, our rate on every single one of these goes down substantially. I mean, when I first got here, we were in the 4.5 range. And now to be as low as this, I mean, 26 cents on that very lowest one per thousand is pretty small. So that's kind of where the hope is that we really have $5 million to play with now that we've never had. And we don't also have the bond debt. So it works out to our favor quite a bit.
Mr. Dewey, I want to ask a question, and it seems a little convoluted in my mind. So if I ask it in a convoluted way, just let me know. But my question would be, say that we take a couple of schools offline because that's what we're discussing, and the continued salary gap is a little bit less. Would we still be able to use that same money for salary and then just have more money in the general fund? Not saying that that's how it would work out, but is my understanding of the concept correct?
So yeah, so think of we get funded based on ADA. It doesn't fund us based on how many buildings we have.
Yep.
So we get a full amount of money, $90 million a year, if we have 26 buildings or we have 20 buildings or 40 buildings.
Yep.
We have that same amount. So what it really effectively does by having more buildings in our area, we have to support those buildings more. And if we have smaller schools, we still have to have all that support structure for every one of those schools. So you were correct. We could put that money into other buildings.
And they wouldn't work as Ether right? Like with Ether, we had to continue to spend and spend and spend. But if a big shift or a change came based on those being in buckets, we wouldn't have to necessarily like it wouldn't work against us because we would save money from the general fund if we had extra money in salary. Not saying that we would, but like with ESSER funds, it was, we have to, one-time funds, they have to be used.
Are you asking if we could use those savings really anywhere?
Right, if they were there,
It's not
savings could be
specific
used.
use money.
It's
saving
savings could
by
be used
closing.
anywhere.
Correct.
So
So-
like if
so
we were
the-
to make a decision, if we were saying go through with the levy, and then like trustee Baez said, we end up closing, say 2 schools, not saying that we are, but say that that's the scenario. Then you would still be able to utilize this money in those same places, but we could actually savings in say our general fund if we had more than we anticipated at the time. Not that I'm saying we would
Yes.
at all, I
So-
just want to make sure my understanding is
So
correct.
you're exactly right in your understanding. So the rationale though with the supplemental levies, because of the new law, once we actually tell people what we're gonna get, we have to use it on that. Now,
Yep.
if we decide to do different case, I'm sure there's a get back together and tell people what we're doing. It's not like it's set in stone, but we have to have meetings. We can't just internally just switch things from one thing to the other.
But there's a
Now,
bit
we
more-
have the ability also, even though we levy 14, we decided to levy 12, we can do that too. We can actually levy for less than what we asked for as well. It's just a matter of we need to have on the ballot what we have. On the general fund side, yes, once it's general fund, we have the ability to maneuver that any way we want. I think we're actually going to need that additional
do too.
funds just to be able to
wanted
keep
to
it
really
afloat.
ask for standing. I
Yeah.
with you. I think we're gonna need it. So I don't know that anything that I'm talking about that's extra will exist.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we had, I guess, more.
You have the correct prompts.
more access than we did with ESSER.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Trustees, any other questions?
Remind me the language on if we were to pass a supplemental levy,
Mhm.
has to have the larger dollar amount, correct, or no?
That part I'm still looking into. I
Okay.
believe it's actually a smaller amount because the law actually says how much we get to use. I
Okay.
honestly don't know because we'd be one of the first to
To
actually
do
go
it.
down this route because most everybody else has debt that they have to use that money towards.
Gotcha.
So that is questions for our council that we'll have to make sure what's the actual dollar amount that we're gonna have to use. Because the amount that we're actually gonna levy, which if you use the top amount, won't be correct amount because it'll be $5 million too
Right.
high. So we want to make sure patrons know the exact amount. So I believe we should be able to do the lower
The
amount,
lower amount.
knowing the law's there and knowing it's funded. That's why I think we can actually do it. If we think we didn't have that kind of funding, it was speculative, then at that point in time, I think we'd have risk.
Okay,
Trustees,
thank you.
Trustee Kirkman had to step out. Do we want to take, because it's
Yeah,
such a
let's
big
do it.
conversation, can we go ahead and take a 5-minute health break? We've been going for a while anyway. Thank you. Go ahead and call the meeting back to order. If you put your name in for our trustees seat, can I have you raise your hand if you're here with us in the audience today? Do I have anybody in the audience who's put their name in to run? No, not one person.
I think
Chairman, I believe you did have a person that was
Yeah.
here earlier
Oh, okay.
prior to asking that question.
Okay.
I can speak to that. That's Mr. Jason Sue. He had to go pick up his son at football who got coached before.
Got it. So we had one here. Okay, good. Well, now we know. It's nice to see. Okay, you're back up. Trustees, I think we were at this question stage. Is that correct, Mr. Dewey?
Yeah, just on different, how much things cost. If you wanted to bring up that last one again, that would be helpful.
So he had answered his last question and then we went ahead and paused the meeting just so that we could all be on the same page with questions regarding the levy. So questions?
My question has to do with procedure, and I think we're going to talk about that, what the process is going to be. So
Any other questions for Mr. Dewey or any other questions on the finance side of it? Okay, so Mr. Dewey, I think we're good. If we're gonna move into procedural questions, let's go that route, if that's where we're at.
yeah, I just want to know, okay, what is the process? What is our timeline? Do we have something already down that we need to follow?
I could speak and then the superintendent can if you would like. I think, I think that the district, we were hoping that you guys would be able to give clear direction on an amount so that they can start working with legal to possibly provide a resolution to present at a board meeting. If you're going to put a supplemental levy ballot on a levy on the ballot in November. And they were hoping to get direction on one of the amounts presented or a different amount, but direction so we can have all of the documentation and possibly take action at a special meeting.
It almost sounds like it needed to be an action item then. So maybe I'm wrong, but it's like-
Yeah, Chair Taylor, trustees, exactly what Kurt Lamont said. I think we need to determine a dollar amount, but also just what would you like to see that money used for? Seeing that we've given several options.
So can we back up to the options?
And then what I believe is it would be an action item. I think we'd have to have a special meeting that would talk around a dollar amount and then an action item.
So trustees, I just think it's really important to understand that we have to make this decision. So these are suggestions and needs based on our administrative's work. I don't know how else to explain it. They've taken a look at where they're at. I feel like they're very fiscally responsible. So they're saying, here's where we could use the money. And then they're showing you, I would say in order of importance, right? If we had to ask for anything, it's 1. If we could get more, it's 2. If we could get what we want, it's 3, and the dream would be 4, right?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, so I tend to agree with Trustee Valier, or Valley, one of the two.
Is it Valle?
It's Valier.
Okay.
But what if, when we're looking at this, I mean, we listen to the softball team, I mean, how much is a softball field at Skyview High School? Maybe instead of a football turf, we put in a softball field. I mean, I think that's why
That's the
it was
discussion.
the discussion, and then these, and I'm not disagreeing with the suggestions here from the staff, I mean, but
I just think we have to know it's our conversation.
Absolutely.
This is a suggestion until we move it forward. So just as a point of clarification, it
but
can
we need to give them
change.
a number.
We need to give them a number, and then if we want to see some changes or if we want funds moved over, so
Yeah.
say that we're like, you know what, we really want there to be a tennis track, and I like option 2, but I want to see it with a tennis track. We can say something along those lines, and then I cut you off. So Trustee Simpson, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to clarify.
I was just even thinking if we could narrow it down to either 2 of these options or 1 of these options, and then like if there's something where we want to switch it up or whatever, to that we've got about 2 options between now and the special meeting that we can then, so 1, administration can be talking to legal about what does the wording of that need to look like, whether it's this option or this option. And then at that special meeting, to me, is when we take action and here's what we want to do.
So, and you're right, so right now it's just, because of that, because we're already here, we just said.
Yeah.
So I like, the number 3 for I mean, I wish we always had more money for it, but I like number 3 because where that puts us, because of the $5 million from the state, correct me if I'm wrong, it puts us right back, just actually lower than where we are now. But we're getting more,
They all put us lower than where we are.
I mean, as far as the amount,
As far as the amount.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
the
The
14,
rates are
Thank
just
you.
over, yeah, the
Yes.
rates, but I think he's saying that we've seen our communities say good for the 8 million, and that 11 actually puts us under where the 14 would put us over.
so yeah, the 11 million, the 11.7, almost 11.8, we're actually at financing, really, the levy's gonna be 7.3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's under 8. And I could even stomach the 10.3 with the 14.7 million, option 4, and that's 2 million over what we have now. So I could even stomach option 4.
I mean, and we're also able to say 13 if it's an amount that we want to go after. I just
If
wanted
we
to
do-
make sure, if
what
we
number
wanted to
hits
say
us-
stay even, yeah, if we wanted to say we
number
want to
hits
stay
us?
even to ask for the 8 plus the 5, it would put us at 13. So we can even come up with something in between. My number has been 12 million, not $12.
I was thinking
12 million, it matters.
12,000.
Yeah, right. So 12 million matters. I just think that has felt like an amount that would be the most comfortable. So 12 has just been in my head.
Are you looking at option 3 then? 12 million, which puts us at where we are now?
Yeah, about where we were now. So I just felt like 12 million would be an easy ask. I think that it would be very easy to push us up to 13 to ask for that initial 8 for 2 years. We're really asking for 16 because it's a 2-year levy. So again, I want to remind everybody that this is a 2-year. So we're asking for this amount for 2 years in a row, which I think at this point everybody understands. But I think that I would be really comfortable going with that 13 as well.
Do we get the 5 million for both years?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good with 13.
I'm good with 13.
I want to do some math really quick if that's all right.
Unless anybody's super.
You're the only one on this board that will be able to.
Sorry, I got people trying to message me and getting in the way of my calculations.
Because 13, I mean, it really doesn't put us much above where we are now.
I don't think it does either.
Where would that be?
So go back, if you would, to our main. We project right now, project to 0.96.
Okay.
Is what I project right now. Every one of these comes in lower if you go back forward again. One more. So even the highest one at 14.7 up is still less by 20 basis points. So 0.20 less than where we're at right now.
But
What we're
this
planning
levy-
on doing this year.
This levy rate for 14.7 is 76 cents.
Yeah. Well, plus the torta, 72 and then the torta point.
Okay, so what was the 13? You said 0.96?
No, what we're planning on doing this year will end up being roughly estimated around 0.96.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're saying
So
we want to
still
be competitive compared to where we are now, it actually would be
another
15
quarter down.
or 16 actually to be up into the 0.96 area.
I understand.
And the tennis and tracks again, that's all of our schools.
Can we go back?
I will let
The million for the
talk about that one.
tennis and tracks, just remind me how many.
Did you ask your question again?
I just wondered the million on option 4 for the tennis and tracks. Is that at just the high schools or is it high school, middle school? Is it high school and some elementary? Like, just let me know what kind of buildings.
These would be based for middle schools and high schools. Currently, we have 2 high school tracks that have major repairs that are needed. Columbia High School has 1 lane that cannot be run in. They won't be able to host any district or state track meets. Skyview has some similar issues. Middle schools are all over the place, to be honest with you, with tracks.
Okay.
They have not had really a ton of attention, and I think when I was researching, it's been 5-10 years before any of them have been touched, or even longer than that for some of them
Since I've been here, we haven't ever put much.
in middle schools.
Are you thinking of moving? the tennis and track over to 3 and going at 13-7? Is that a thought in your head?
Kind of.
I don't
a
want,
little
okay,
bit.
yeah, because I could see that.
So-
I could definitely
So
see
what's
that doing
the
state.
priority, the tennis or the trucks?
Great question. It depends on who you talk to. You talk to a tennis player or a track player. The reason why we put them both there is because they're both in danger of having to consolidate some programs into different sites.
Are they
They're
both
in danger.
safety hazards?
They are.
Yeah.
We have current tennis courts at Nampa High that are not deemed playable. 2 of them are not be able to be used during competition. We have been investing into as many as we can, but that money is also part of our previous levies. So we're at a point in time where if they aren't on here, then we won't be able to get them to the level that we need them to be playable for the future.
Can you tell me a little bit more about activities? I don't want to change the subject if you have a question about that, but I just,
No, go right ahead.
I'll defer this one to Dr. Russell and to
Yeah, Trustee Vade, the activities really speaks with upgrades to uniforms, band equipment, making sure that we have activities in our middle schools. Mr. Danny.
That's exactly right. Right now, our activities, the 485 that we have, 155 goes to band and choir and all those type things. 75 goes towards performing arts, which are the high schools like theaters. And we have another 155 that goes to sports. And then we have money, the rest of that goes to elementaries for both activities, which is basically getting outside, going on field trips and that. And the other part is music and arts programs or a STEM, depending on what it is at the schools as well, at the elementary level.
I'm gonna revise my opinion.
Go for it.
I'm for option 4. I know it's a little bit more than the 13. However, after hearing again the state of our tracks and our tennis courts, I think of these kids that are visiting the Nampa schools from other schools in the valley, and just, I don't know, there's an intangible feeling there that take pride in your school. And I've talked a lot about this. How can we expect our students and our staff to take pride in their schools when they're playing on crumbling tennis courts, when they're running on a track that they can't even use one lane? It's absolutely ridiculous. So I am absolutely for option 4. We didn't get our bond passed, and this is what we're dealing with, and this is what we have to work with. So
I have to agree. I have to agree with you. I mean, it only makes sense to me. There's pride, there's safety. And I'm not sure, is this right, as Chairman Taylor said, that this is placed according to priority or not?
I'd round it to 15.
Yeah,
Well, it's not placed in order and priority of what you would want. Are you saying there's things in option 4 that you would rather have over 1, and that's how it's been presented? Because that seems very backwards.
No, what I'm saying in that is just how those are lined up right there are not
Oh,
necessarily.
but 1,
in order.
2, 3,
Yeah.
4
1, 2, 3, 4.
is
are-
order priorities.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about that.
Top to bottom. No.
Top to
I was
bottom.
talking 1 through 4.
We based that off of the first one that was requested. So we took the current option that we have, we listed those categories, and then we just filled them in based off that and added our additional needs to that.
There's no particular order.
No particular order.
But 1 through 4 is the order.
Chair Taylor, yes, no, 1 is not.
No, it's not.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just
there's
option.
no particular order to them. We would recommend, administration would recommend 4 because that's the needs of the district. I mean, that's really what we have. But 1 is fundamental to what we need.
Fundamental to
because
have
it-
to have.
It covers
Yeah.
the salaries
Yeah.
and the curriculum and the
Leases, all that.
So by
And the
no means
technology.
do I believe that we're building a wish list, but the brevity of number 1 has to be expressed in the brevity of number 4, because not putting continued salaries on this levy, some of these things will change the face of our district as we know it, whether people understand it or not. So that's why I'm trying to impress upon us that 1 is critical need.
Right.
So like, they're not asking for 1 because it would be nice. They're asking for 1 because we will lose an enormous amount of teachers. So please hear me in the brevity that I'm trying to help this be expressed in. I don't think that 4 is a wish list. I think that 4 is a need list, but we did not pass our bond.
Right.
And so what I want to be cautious of is this is the same conversation. I don't think any one of us sitting at this table doesn't believe that we need a number 4. I think we had the same question around the bond. However, I would tell you, I think our aid for a levy is critical. So we need to be real in alignment with our community with what we ask for here, because again, 1 to me seems critical. If we do not have the continued salaries, we will have to change. That will change class sizes. That will change the very landscape of this district, because we already have ESSER cliffs. So I'm not trying to be extreme, but that has to be communicated clearly, because we have not gone the way other districts have gone. We have districts near us that have 40 plus in a classroom. We are not having our parents deal with that. So they need to understand that this will help continue that path. Okay. As long as I'm communicating that very clearly, this is critical. So it's not like there's no question if we can run a levy. In my opinion, it's how much, and can we be in alignment with the community to get it passed? Because we missed it on the bond. As much as I wish we didn't, we did.
So now, and I totally understand that. I appreciate that, how you put that with the passion that it needs to be, to have. My question now has to be with supplemental salaries, the difference between 2 and 3. And our supplemental salaries more in priority than playgrounds or not as priority as activities or playgrounds. Why is it taken out of number 2?
Board Chair Taylor, Trustee Biden, I can speak to that. The biggest thing is really it came out of negotiations and something that's ongoing, we continue to do. Our supplemental salaries right now are paid out of our general fund money, as Mr. Dewey addressed. What this move would do is tell our community, if you want these supplemental things, AKA sports, activities, opportunities for your students that are not curricular in nature, this would move that to that piece, so we can free up general fund monies to work for the career ladder, which will benefit our district in the long run. Again, we're taking a portion of our general fund and paying those supplemental salaries, and most districts around us do not do that. They have supplemental levies carrying those things for their district. I don't know if I answered your question with clarity, but that's why. And again, it's not a priority. It's as far as a priority list, it's a matter of as Chair Taylor said, this is all critical. And I would just throw out again, even with our community, regardless, taxes are going down even at the highest amount that we're asking here. I think that's a key piece to help our constituents understand.
So really quick, just because Mandy and I chatted about just the supplemental salaries, I really loved Mandy's definition. I would love to hear her.
So, and I think part of it is like Mr. Yarbrough said, it did come from the negotiations team, but knowing it came from the negotiations team because our state has never funded those extracurricular activities, but our district has made them a priority and has continued and to put that amount of money into and take it out of the general fund to do those things for our kids. And so it's that flipping that mindset to say, you're right. And actually a lot of people in our community have said, and with the bond, they said, like, why aren't you just paying for the things that the state is requiring, right? And so it's taking that mindset and getting the community to understand, that in our state constitution, it doesn't say to provide anything extracurricular for our kids. We do value it. We do think it's important, but let's put it where it actually should go, on that supplemental levy, because these are the extra things that we're doing on top of it, and try to get to a place where we're working to get the critical things that are on there that we need to see stay, that are mandatory we see stay. But I would argue that 4 is also based on our community and the feedback. And I know people would tell us, well, sports are a priority. They told us that all along through COVID. We've heard it. I know that that's what this community appreciates and wants. And so do I for this community. So to me, it's really important that those supplemental salaries, the football turf, the tennis and the track, things like those and the activities are on our supplemental levy. And how do we work to get where are critical, our curriculum, right? Curriculum, how, but again, people don't understand that the state gives us chump change. Like not even that, it's like couch change for our curriculum. And we're the fourth largest district in the state, third largest district in the state, and it is pocket change. That might even be teacher pocket change because we are digging through the couch, like finding our change, right? Like there's not a lot floating around. It's getting used. Sorry, and I just got passionate on myself.
No, you should be passionate.
I'm super passionate about this because I want to get the critical things like the continued salaries, the curriculum, the technology, the security, okay, the early childhood, the playgrounds. To me, those are things that are critical to helping our kids learn and grow and be successful. And not to say that the other things I didn't list on there aren't as important, but to me, they are the supplemental piece of things.
And the only reason that I loved her definition, Trustee Baye, is because I agree this gives the community a very big opportunity to tell us what they're saying no to. So if your kid plays football, my assumption would be that you would want good football turf. If your kid is tennis and track, and that is a priority for you and your family, my assumption would be that you can now see that and you can identify those things clearly. So that's really why I liked her definition of that. And supplemental salaries, same thing. I mean, that isn't covered in our general fund. If we as a community want these things, we're showing you what they cost and how you could pay for them.
I'm on board with option 4. I think, people could have guessed that. And I'm on board to bump it up to 15, but I'm on board to keep it. But also we didn't ask this question ahead, but the number of our students that participate in track is huge. It is by far the biggest number of activities that bring our kids out. And so to me, that is $1 million well spent to make sure those tracks are safe, to make kids want to be a part of that team, to want to go out and not be embarrassed. Like, oh my gosh, we get made fun of every time this school comes to run because we got to close off these 2 lanes, right? Or whatever the case may be. But I hope that it also makes our community see like those extracurricular activities are important, and it may not be my kid's activity that's on there, but I can go back and look and see that over and over again, Nampa School District keeps putting those things, the activities, the after school programs and things that we need to help get kids interested and motivated to do school are there.
Chair Taylor and Trustee Simpson, one thing I would add on the tracks as well, that is one of the things our communities do actually use.
Yeah.
It's not just our students. And so there's that piece as well of that conversation. I appreciate it, but wanted to state that I need to state in an open board meeting for clarity. I am a sports guy. I coach multiple sports. I've coached multiple sports at the high school level. It pains me to think of sports as supplemental. It really does. But when you speak to when you try to operate as Trustee Simpson was talking, we have to get the supplementals in supplemental. We have to take care of the criticals. And that's something we've got to do to help out with that in the long
It's
run.
almost just like a realignment.
Correct.
Yeah.
More than
And it's what
anything.
we're working on doing. So listen, I'm going to say this to you guys. I'm good with Board Team 7 as long as we can leave this room. And as trustees, we do our job to make sure that that's not a reckless amount, because we need a levy so badly, in my opinion, that if we miss our mark and we continue to alienate in whatever way we did, right? Because it's feedback, regardless of whether you want to believe it, no matter what, that's feedback that we received in the voting process. So if we want to leave this room and say 14-7 and give that direction, I'm not comfortable with going over that. That's just me. We pushed the envelope last time and it just backfired. So we're comfortable with that as trustees, but we need to bring good feedback to this administration, because the last thing that they can do is afford to not get a levy. That's how I feel.
Yeah, no, thank you. How can we be pushing the envelope when it's what we need? We're not pushing nothing. This is
No.
realistic. That's how I feel.
I know, but
So-
we felt that way about the bond because the need for our children is great.
Yeah, and I think people need to decide, and they will, but really that's what I need is. And I totally think that number 4 should be the number that we need to give
Yeah, I agree.
I-
this one.
Mainly because I want to hear from folks, and I think if we leave here with one option, we don't give people, and yes, I know they've had multiple options. This is not the first time we've talked about this. It will not be the last, but I do want people to provide feedback. And the best, I think, when we can narrow it down and then say, let us know, what can you get behind and support? I like the idea of 13. I like the idea of 13 to keep it at 8. And I would change an option and do an option 5, of course I would. Keeping at 13, and Randy, check my math, but an option 5 would total 13 million. The tennis and track million would be in there. And I know this is like change found into the parking lot. The $220,000 left for maintenance projects.
Yeah, any amount of money we could get.
That's left goes there. To hit 13.
What gets cut then? What are you looking at? I mean, what's not there in option 5 that was?
The rest of the 800
one
or
of
the
the-
780,000.
One of the things I was bringing up
For
to
maintenance.
people here too, the 1.2 for supplemental salaries is what we're spending now. We've had a lot of requests as well in negotiations
Yes.
every year to increase that to have help with some additional things to be more productive. So as much as I love the maintenance projects in 2. I would almost prefer we provide, if we're going to go this route, I'd almost prefer there, but I'm speaking to myself on that. We might want to bump that up a little bit more to give us a little bit more room on some newer things that we might need.
So you're saying if we had an extra even 220,000, you'd rather see that be in supplemental salaries versus maintenance projects?
In negotiations every year, we fight over about 3 or 4 weeks on just some supplemental things that we've been asking for every single time. So
I need to hear from Mr. Stafford on this one because I just don't, or some, because I don't see how you, I mean, maintenance is so
You
crucial.
ever put Courtney and Randy in a boxing ring?
Again, we have a lot of needs. And I think we have to look at where those needs are going to best benefit the district long-term. Obviously, my area is over the operations of the district, and and we've talked about this over the last year plus of the declining needs of our buildings. Our deferred maintenance is going to skyrocket in the next 5 years to over $100 million. We're currently at 80 million plus, and it's rising. And every time we don't do anything to our maintenance, we are putting our buildings and therefore the health of our children in those buildings become in question the longer and longer that we go through this process. So obviously my emphasis, because it's my position, is going to be reminding you of those needs, and then trying to do my best to have our departments take care of those needs so that we have safe places for our kids, healthy places for our kids, and buildings that equate to the programs and the type of education that we want to be seen in our schools. You've heard about, Skyview talked about not having a softball field. Nampa High doesn't have a baseball field or a softball field. We have facilities that don't have all those things. When we're talking specifically sports, where we could potentially lose some of our facilities over the next few years. And we're talking sports. Our buildings are coming up to that too, that we're going to be having to look at buildings that we're going to have to be really thoughtful about. Can they provide the needs? Can they provide the safety? Can they provide the security that we want our kids to have? So that's a roundabout discussion of and a synopsis of what we've been doing the last year and a half. We are getting to that critical component where major decisions are going to need to be made. So to talk about the 200,000 that go to the supplemental salaries, that is people, that helps people, that puts money in people wanting to come be a part of our district. So it's a really hard play. My job is to do the best to inform you of how those decisions impact my department. So that's how I'll answer it. I don't want to play us against each other. It's a difficult decision.
We'll do that.
That's why we're, here you go. Randy chose something else.
It's 200 grand and much rather go up there.
Randy chose something else,
I
but
think you make a really good point for what the need is. And so I actually think that you spoke eloquently and passionately, and I appreciated that.
Well, I think the 220, I think the extra 220 should go to maintenance. One, those are hard fixed costs. We have a 1.2 that's hopefully we can move in there and give us a little bit, but we also don't know what the legislature is going to do next year either.
Right.
I mean, if they're going to revisit
Can I-
it, and so there's a possibility there could be some additional funding for teachers also, which would help, but I think we're talking about 220,000. I know it's not chump change, but I think it would best be used in operation, or sorry, not corporate, but for maintenance.
Could for ease of purpose, can you pull up our screen one more time, Tyler? Sorry. I don't know how many times we need to look at this. How would you guys feel? I know that the 11 to 14 is a bigger jump, but how would you guys feel if we just did a 13.7 and a 14.7? And that way we're only playing with $1 million, because at 13.7, we're asking for what, 8.5, somewhere in there after the 5 million kickback, right?
So,
Go up one more. You can actually kind of see it. So go up one more. So if you look at the $9 million one where we're at, if you kind of do the math, 3, add $2 more million, you go to 5, add $2 more million, you're 7. So you're basically adding 0.1 per million. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because those 3 are literally $2 million apart in each one. We kind of did that on purpose to kind of make it easy for exactly that purpose.
But I just almost feel like they would see that the difference is $1 million jump, and we're not asking for much more money. I just feel like it's really.
No, I mean, so if you're looking at, 13 million, you're looking at 0.6.
Yeah, so.
I mean, we can give you whatever numbers you want.
Yeah.
We can
Well,
put
that's
a
what
whole
I'm saying
bunch
is,
of
what if
different
we just
numbers.
played with $1 million versus having 220,000 left over? Would it bring me back to my favorite slide?
yeah, but the $220 is already worked into the rate, so why not just throw it in?
Well, it is, but what I'm saying
I
is,
can make
what if
it
we
rating.
just pulled off $1 million, so it's easier to peel that $1 million from somewhere else versus just playing with 220,000, unless you guys want more of it.
So
like a
what I
And
hear is, so possible 2 options are the 14,780 and then the 13,780, which means would leave $1 million for maintenance projects and the $1 million for track.
Correct. So
And
then we would leave $1 million in, so we would basically only be deducting $1 million from maintenance. So we're able to put something in every bucket, and we're basically just showing them like, hey, at that 13.7, I'm talking about the amount of 8 million as a levy. I love the breakdowns that we do, but those are harder to explain to the community than saying, hey guys, we're just levying for that 8 million or like 8.5. So we're basically asking you for 500,000 more after the kickback, or we're asking you for 1.5 million.
Yeah.
It's just a much easier conversation to have.
How much is $1 million going to go on maintenance? So,
I mean, it's gonna go further than 220,000.
no, I was.
Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, it won't go real far. I mean, the honest truth is it won't go very far.
I was assuming the 220 would be added to the $1 million. That's what I was thinking on that.
But it is better than nothing. And as Mr. Stauffer mentioned, we have 11.2 million every year of maintenance just gets added on. So, what does 1 million do? Well, it knocks it
It's just
down
gonna-
to 10
That
million.
domino.
Yeah.
But
It's gonna
yeah.
be worse later on. It's-
Yeah, in 2036, this community is going to have a serious issue with its schools if we don't do something.
See, we're prioritizing the wrong thing, I think. Maintenance should be a priority, period. That's why number 4 to me is what makes sense. If we need to take money out of other places, let's do it, but not out of the maintenance.
Well, if we can get to an amount, I think that what we could do is we could say at the end, that could be feedback that we could get, and we could move that money. So if we lost $1 million, if you felt more comfortable taking that $1 million from something else that seems, I would agree with you that maintenance seems critical. So when you're speaking to me, I hear that as well. I think it all seems critical. In a perfect world, we would get the 14.7, but if we're going to drop it $1 million, it doesn't necessarily have to come from maintenance. I hear you.
Well, in a perfect world, we'd never be in a boat where we have deferred maintenance
Right.
as much as we
Right.
do, because we would have had funding for maintenance all along.
Yeah.
I just think, and I'm sure I'm gonna get emails in here feedback, but based on the levy, the bond levy, our community has less interest in maintenance, because that's what that bond levy was all about, was how do we get our buildings as close as we can to where we need them to be safe for kids. And it may have been my fault and I'll own fault of not communicating exactly what that was and how it impacts kids, as one person on this board, right? Whose job is to do that. And to be honest, I thought we did. So, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
do.
I get it.
Yeah.
But looking at the track record,
And I hope that that's not what I sound like when I'm
No,
talking
no,
to you
no,
guys
no,
about
no.
this, because I think part of what we're facing too, guys, is it's never been so expensive to live in Idaho. And so I think some of what we're facing, quite honestly, is just, I mean, my grapes are $7. That's just grapes. Do you know what I mean? So I do think that some of what we're facing, it could be feedback of the times too. So that's what's so difficult. But based on the results, that is the only assumption that we could draw, because that's what that vote would say,
right?
is that maintenance, that's a logical conclusion.
I don't necessarily agree 100% on that perspective. I think they were looking at the brand new high school rather than what's required maintaining the building. So I think the public understands maintenance is important. But with the bond, I think what they were seeing was beyond the maintenance and their whole brand new campus and that kind of thing.
That's a fair assessment too.
And there was people that they were giving out false information and they weren't even attending the meetings that we had.
So
we just need to narrow it down,
So
guys.
are you thinking an option 5 at 13.78 and an option 4 at 14.78?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
I am too.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
You guys have your answer.
See, that's all it took. Let's get two numbers.
You would have to tell us how painful it was.
So those are the two options then to.
So you guys have a
Special
million
board meeting
for special, yeah.
and language to go to legal and, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 4 to me is still.
We'll have language for all three. I mean,
Yeah, it'll all be
Yeah.
basically the same.
I mean, it's all you just add
Yeah.
numbers for each one of them. And I don't even think I don't know how much, because we haven't never done it at that level. So we've
Yeah.
never done it since the new laws come out. So.
So now that I'm moving this forward, I think our directive is to say that we would like to put this action decision with the work session that we want to do around closing some of the schools. So I think that everybody heard, so that intent is clear.
I think special meeting first.
Right,
And
but
if we
then
can-
by
if we can
the
get the
work
work
session.
session scheduled.
But that's our goal, is to combine the two.
This would be
Okay.
the priority.
All right, so from there.
Can
if
I
we have
ask
priorities.
a question?
Yes.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm just worried that people will think voting for the supplemental levy will cause us to not close the school.
And we can
or to
move it.
not-
That's what I'm saying. We had just said we had a special
But
meeting come up
hoping
and
that
we wanted
people
to.
hear and understand that based on our enrollment and our facilities that we've been saying over and over again, sorry, I'm distracted.
I'm with you. That's
You
why
know.
I reiterated what we
Yeah.
as the board have asked.
Okay,
So that is what we have asked. So are we saying we want a special meeting, not on the same day as the work session? That's all.
Quick question. Do the same rules apply from the last election for board members as to how we can talk about this
Always.
and the levy? Okay.
Yes.
I'm okay with two separate meetings. I
Two
mean,
separate.
They can.
the special meeting for the levy,
We
and I
can.
think that's a priority to get it out there or to get the language, and then a
We
work
can.
session.
And we can meet with them.
And that's a
We can
logical-
say-
That's a logical process.
Okay, so you said two separate meetings, really quick, because I want to let
Special meeting first, then a work session on the
separate days and
Yeah.
times.
boundaries, yeah.
Okay, so I'm with that. That's a 3. Are you good with two separate meetings?
Yes.
Okay, now your question.
So he was saying something. I want to hear it and understand what you guys were whispering to me in my left ear.
What you meant.
Your question, Trustee Valle, was do the same rules apply? We just want to be clear with those, is that really the administration, all we can do is inform.
Yep.
The board can do more than that. You can speak to what your passions are for these. But the administrative level, we have to speak to just the facts.
I thought that's, in the last election, I thought we could speak to our emotions.
You're voting.
But the board also cannot use your district email
Correct.
Okay.
or district equipment,
Correct.
devices, any, like if you wanted to come in and make your own brochure, you
So I
can.
can do a TikTok dancing without.
Tic Tac,
signs.
that's true.
Not here.
If Marco knows how to
It's-
if I
Not
see
here,
a
yeah.
Marco TikTok, I am.
Yeah.
With his own device, off of school properties, please.
Yeah, well, we can't use it on. We don't have to.
All right, do we have any more questions regarding this, guys? If we do not, I am gonna move us to the finance treasurer's report, but I definitely do not want to speed us up.
I don't have any.
I'm good.
Um,
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, we bring up my quick and easy spreadsheet.
While he's bringing that up, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, you can.
Endowment fund. You know how much we got from that?
We,
The state endowment fund, they were selling off land. They had like record amount for K through 12 or something like that.
so what that money does is it goes into our lottery fund, the total pot that gets distributed amongst everything. There's a formula with that. That formula is unfortunately based on last year's best 28 weeks. So we don't get any more or less necessarily unless there's more in the money. And that's the state money that comes. Yes, the endowment land did sell some state, but it's every year it kind of goes up and down based on what's available. Lottery funds is the other side of it as well,
Yeah.
that we get that money. Yeah.
It's never just a yes or no question.
Well,
I
it
guess if I
happened.
asked a yes or no question,
Yes.
it would be.
No, that's okay. All right. So I just want to remind everybody, if you look at the financial report, there's little or nothing on there because none of our true salaries end up starting up until, for the first time, August. We've moved our salary. We're moving our salary for our teachers up one and our people up 1 month in order to help our people actually get paid when they're actually working, as opposed to waiting until the latter part of September. So yes, I think it's a great thing for our people, and we've had some really good people happy about it. But that being said, our actual costs, what you're seeing in there is very little in there, and even some of our bills haven't come in yet. So we're just still working on that. You'll see more bills, and then if you look at the encumbrance one, that one's a little bit better. The one that's this, the summary, that one will give you a little bit more. And even those, we haven't got everybody in positions yet. We're still trying to get everybody in for our first payroll. So go to the next one. All right. So the one nice thing is our auditors start the week of the September 5th. So they should be doing that for about 2 weeks. Final report will be brought to you guys in October to approve. I don't see anything unanticipated right now. I do know this year is as tight as I've ever seen it. We've had some very, very big overruns that I wasn't as anticipating for. The transportation hit me pretty good, and so did substitutes. That was almost $2 million extra. It's kind of, that one hurts when you get those big ones. But wait, I think we're going to be okay in the end. I will meet with you guys and still do that. The one thing I will remind you guys as well, remember Trustee Simpson said when we had the $1 million extra, or the $2 million extra this year that we distributed out, we did $1 million that went for furniture and all that. And Mr. Stopper did a great job getting that out to schools. We did another $500,000, which was the extra carry forward that we brought through. Schools are still spending that, love it. They were super happy with that. And we sat on another $500,000. So that $500,000 is still sitting out there, not being used yet. I might have to come back to you and say, hey, might need that $500,000 for some of these anticipated, but hopefully that will roll forward. We might be able to put some more things out there that you guys might be able to determine some needs as well.
Was that the funding for like the classrooms to like?
Yeah, so we had $2 million that we had for carry forward from the prior year.
Right.
And then you guys authorized $1 million for classroom furniture and stuff, $500,000 for the extra carry forward. And so we sat on another $500,000, and Trustee Simpson actually said it was $500,000 each year for supplies.
Yeah.
So if you wanted something different, we actually have to have a different
Oh,
motion to
that's
get
good.
that changed.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's still out there. It's not lost, but
Yeah.
might come to you later if things don't look as well as I thought they would. But well, I feel confident. If you want to go to the next one. Is that it?
Yep.
Well, that was easy. So yeah, so really there's nothing going on right now. And we got our first payment. I mean, the first payment in August is really just an estimate of what we think. But numbers, we'll see what they come in as. And when everything gets cleaned up, these first 2 weeks are always kind of a scary thing because things just kind of go like this. But we'll weather the storm and we'll get back to you if there's anything real crucial that we need to worry about.
Cool. Trustees, any questions for Mr. Dewey?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, with that, you guys, we're gonna move into the superintendent report. Sorry, Dr. Russell.
No, you're fine, Chair Taylor, trustees. Just some verbal updates here. Mr. Yarborough is going to come in and communicate some stuff in a second, but I just want to start back to school, as you mentioned, very smooth. I just wanted to give a big public thank you to all of our staff. They did an incredible job at running and walking the classrooms. You saw happy kids, happy parents, happy staff. It was just incredible. So really proud of that work. Community engagement. We have talked about that several times. We are starting a community engagement push the next 6 weeks, starting August 26th through October 10th, where we will be using the talents of Mr. Keefe and we'll be promoting many of the events we got going on in our schools to ask our parents and our families and our community to come and be a part of those. The first one is Grilling with Greg. This Saturday at West Park, we'll be cooking some hot dogs and having a good time out there. And so, again, encourage folks to come say hi.
I feel like I have to come because
I have
it's called Grills with Greg.
It's
I will
gonna be
see you
good.
Saturday because I cannot
Yeah,
wait to
we're
go.
5:30 to 7:30 at West Park, and we'd love people to come out. And that would be kind of our official kickoff to that. And then Tyler will be posting and we'll be sending out social media things about all the events. We have a variety of different schools from elementary to middle to high schools having events throughout that time. And we'll have events after that, of course, but we just thought it'd be a great thing just to kind of kick off the year and share with that. There's your graphic. There'll be great hot dogs. So the next one, I'm going to have Mr. Yarborough talk a little bit around our strategic work plan and our continuous improvement plan. Those things are coming up, and he'll give us a real quick verbal update, and then I'll end with our enrollment. Awesome.
Chair Taylor, board, thank you. On our CIP, our continuous improvement plan, if you remember last year, Anita ran through that with us, and she is going to do that again. The plan is to bring that to you at the next board meeting. We'll have all that information prepped for you. She has been out most of the summer with a new addition to her family. She had a baby boy, if you don't know, so it's been awesome. But seeing her back in the building has helped a lot. It's helped ease some of my nerves. She's going to be bringing where we perform that continuous improvement plan, what our next steps are, and how we keep going there. And I want to be really clear that continuous improvement plan is a board-approved action piece. As compared to our strategic work plan, and I know that sounds kind of crazy, but our strategic work plan is really what we're doing to try and focus the work that we do across the district. And I want to take just a couple minutes to explain what we're doing. About the last 2 years, we've really been working on a model called HRS. I believe you've heard of it. It's high reliability schools. And what that really is about helping our building level leaders create the conditions in school to maximize student achievement. We have work to do there, and we know that we are, and we're working very hard on that. Last year, we identified 5 key indicators from the district level that we were wanting all buildings to work on and to put a plan in place to monitor quick data to see how they're performing in those areas. We actually rolled out a 2-year plan to do that, and we're entering in the 2nd year of that. So those 5 indicators are around very specific things. The first indicator is around a safe and collaborative culture. The next one is around our PLCs and what we do with our teacher teams to work on student data to drive student achievement. The third is about an instructional vision in each of our classrooms and what happens there. And then the last 2 are about goal setting and goal analysis. And we're doing a lot of work there. That's been a journey that Mr. Scott Knopp and I have kind of went on. Last year, he was our curriculum instruction director, and he's moved into the executive elementary director, as you know. He's still got his hands in that, and we bounce a lot of ideas off each other, but we're really excited about where our buildings are and where we're headed with that piece. One other scenario within our strategic work plan we're going to be rolling in as well is what we're doing at the district level. Because what HRS is around schools and what we do to provide the conditions in schools to maximize student achievement, we have to understand that we're a very complex organization. I was sitting back listening to the meeting tonight, and all of the stuff we're talking about is a very, very complex organizational structure. So we're going to work with all of our district level departments about things that they can do to help create better conditions to maximize student achievement as well. And the reason we need to slow that down and really look at this with each of our departments is what happens in a school in a classroom is different than what happens on a maintenance field or what happens with our maintenance department. So the high reliability schools work that we're doing is joined to the high reliability organizational framework which comes from the military and a lot of health organizations about how we can decrease the variance in the processes and outcomes for all of our district. And that's what we're working on. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Want to make sure again that we're just working through and showing you guys evidence of that. Really excited for where we're going and what we put together as a team.
I love it.
I do too.
No question, just a comment from what I heard. This is my takeaway is that everything that we do in this district is now, not that it hasn't been, but really focusing on that student. Whether it's a classroom, whether they have the desk, whether they have a track to run on, what doesn't matter. It's all focused on that student. And that's what my takeaway is from what you were just saying is that that's what we're looking at.
Trustee Kirkman, that is exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And what we've learned is that in a big organization, there are times when processes and procedures actually unintentionally may work against each other. So we really want to take a step back and look at those things. The main piece is gathering quick data on how did whatever we just did, how did that go? What did that meet the customer's needs? And quite honestly, the customer in this case is that student. How are we helping maximize student achievement across our district? So,
Thank you.
I hear the same thing. The same thing I said when I came to the collaboration meeting. I think that this is exactly where healthy organizations need to go. I love that you guys are on the route, and I love that you're viewing it from the perspective of a scorecard in a student's eyes. Yeah, it's great work. So, great.
just one last plug. I would like to acknowledge all the work from our director level leaders, our building level leaders, and our teachers. Like it is a complex organization. We got great people. We just have to support them and keep working to minimize all the distractions, if you will, to get down on that. And I'm pretty excited to be working with this team because I know we can do it. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yorba.
Chair Taylor, trustees,
I can't believe I said that. He's like, I'm so
last update has to do with our enrollment. And so I was crunching some enrollment numbers, been watching them the last couple of days. And of course, we're only 3 days in school, so it's really, really tough. But every year, our numbers when we start school are inflated to a certain degree because we anticipate kids coming back, and not every kid that we anticipate comes back. And so often our numbers look larger the first couple of weeks of school, and then we start dropping students when they don't show after a certain amount of days. So last year at this time, our inflated numbers looked around 13,800 kids, a little over that. And when that we take out some preschool students because they're in our power school as well, but we don't earn revenue from preschool. So that dropped us down to about 13,600. And then we had about anywhere 250 to around 400 who don't show up any year. And that drops us down again. So last year we ended the year around 13,300, pretty close to that. Right now on our books, we're at 13,400 inflated. And when I take out preschool, that drops us to 13,200. Right around there, and again, give or take a few students. So if I anticipate a typical drop of another 150 to 300 to 350 students, we're probably going to be under 13,000. Looking at, we anticipated we'd have a decline again, looking at our enrollment, so that's not too much of a surprise. One surprise was our kinder numbers, as I mentioned earlier. Right now, about 870. Last year, we had around 970, 980. And so it's low in kinder. That is one of the areas that we're seeing at. We'll obviously continue to watch it, and I'll give you updates as we look at our enrollment. We budgeted at 13,087. So around 13,100 is kind of where we budget our FTE. So as close to 13,100 as we can get, the better we are. So I'm a little nervous, but we'll see where we shake out. So questions on enrollment at all that I can try to answer? That was a lot of
it's
kind of hypothetical.
Yeah, I got a question. Do we keep track of charter school growth? And seeing if
I don't, but the state may, and I could reach out to that as well.
I'm just saying if it's affecting us.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. Why are we that way? Well, I think we mentioned earlier, we're seeing smaller kindergartens. The smaller, and we're just not seeing the birth data, the live birth data that we've seen in the city. That's something that we looked at in enrollment. That's one of it. Yes, charter schools have opened more. If you remember last year, Elevate opened. That was another charter school. They took several hundred students from us, and then a couple of the others have expanded. But most charter schools, they kind of have a cap on how many students they take, and that has to do with a divisor. If charter schools stay under a certain number, they earn a little bit higher a divisor. So they usually don't grow to large numbers. They stay within where they typically like to, which is around the 400 to 600 range, not too much bigger than that. So to my knowledge, most of our charters are at that level. But I'm happy to look in the state and see if, and that would be all for the superintendent.
Trustees, do we have any additional questions for Dr. Russell? Perfect. If we could just move on to possible agenda items. I know that we've had the same placeholder for a while. If I could just get all of you guys to take a look at it. I know that school boundaries were top priority. Obviously, we're facing that decision. I just think that it would be really great if we were able to kind of put these into like a priority category, even if we individually sent to Mrs. Lamont how we wanted them like organized. If that makes sense to you guys, just because I don't think we've done that for a while and it's been a placeholder and now we're starting on the meat of this work.
Yeah.
And by that, do you think grouping and ranking? Or?
I think that Clerk Lamont, I would be open to your suggestion on this, and not at all that I think that we need to even really discuss, because all of these topics have been discussed, as much as I think that for any chair, myself right now and then future, it's much easier to see this based in a linear priority list than it is circular, which is how I think it's written. And I think it needs to be a little bit more linear. So my goal was just to take some time for everybody to review this, get with Chrissy and say, hey, this was my order. And
Well, I'm sorry, there's going to be obviously changes
Right.
in the makeup of the board anyways. I think this is a really good time to kind of prioritize what some of these might be.
And I already started taking some off this evening. You already took action on the back to school plan, so I removed that this evening.
Yep.
I also added supplemental levy resolution and an appointment of trustee, because that would be an agenda item, so I'll remove it from next month. But the other thing is, I do know that, and maybe I'm wrong, Superintendent Russell, I believe you were working on the monthly behavior report. We were that was indicated from a meeting, and I believe he was going to take the curriculum review committee to the new curriculum director. That was some of the notes you guys also had, if you were going to put one together. I think he was tying together the mental health plan with the monthly behavior report, but I could be wrong. But that's what I had. So I just took off back to school plan, and Dr. Russell, let me know if I'm mistaken with the monthly report and the mental health plan.
Sure. So, Chair Taylor and trustees, the monthly behavior report is something that came up last spring after we reviewed behaviors. If you remember, I think that was April, may have been March.
Mhm.
And then we started through our gender policy for a couple of months. So would like to come back and kind of review that, and then also the mental health report, because that was one of the requests as well we asked. There is information that we can bring forward around behaviors. I would maybe like to, after we review that, to hear from the board again of what specifically things they'd like to see. We could report on our risk and threats. We could report on our suicide screeners, those type of things. But when I did speak with our staff about that, there was some nervousness for some of our counselors, because that, particularly around like our Columbia screeners around suicide, every one of those is a student, and it represents a number, and it represents a student that was in crisis. And they wanted us to be sensitive of some of those numbers when we look at some of those things too. So some of that I was still weighing out, kind of what reports do we want to bring forward. We are working on some things, because last year, if you remember, we saw an increase in our elementaries and our middle schools and high schools around behaviors. And what I asked the schools to do is we need to all report consistently, so that if we use data to guide where we put finances and resources, we need to have the same type of data of what's a basic discipline issue, what's a severe issue. So we could bring some information around that. This goes back to the highly reliable schools for us to all be on the same page and use data to make our decisions best and then use quick data to see if we're making progress or not. So yes, curriculum is correct. We've been working on those and trying to bring them as well. But there's also some things I'd like to bring back and do some reports on. I think our federal programs would be a great thing for the board to understand. They've just done an incredible job lately, and I was talking with Niall, so I think in October I'm going to ask him to come. I would like to update you on where we are with our mental health and our new position around our grant writer and some of the things that we're doing there. And then college and career counseling is another one where I think September might be a great time to have them come in so you can understand what that program looks like. So program reviews are in there and some of that. So sorry, quick them up, but it all kind of ties into it.
So,
Yeah.
Chair Taylor, real quick, on this list though, what would be helpful is maybe a synopsis of why that's on the list. For example, I asked Clerk Lamont this, where did the steered straight curriculum come from? And why is it on there? I think sometimes we forget they've been on here, they get
Yes.
stagnant and we don't.
That's why I
The
think,
facilities in Flagpole, what's the?
Yeah,
I don't even know.
yeah, and that's why, again, because it's been on here and I wanted to bring attention to it, is that we at some point just need to talk about it. So that's why,
So I don't know, Chrissy, if you have that knowledge as
So I
to why
think-
these are on the list, but
wasn't the facilities in Flagpole a Jeff request?
I can't remember. I
Yeah,
can't
was it
remember my
trustee
kids'
Christie?
names.
Listen, I'm with you. And that's why we're discussing it, is I can't remember.
Trustee
So that's what I'm
Baye,
saying.
I believe that the staff already took care of it. It was at one of the buildings, the flag was not, or the flagpole was not up, but I could be mistaken. I believe it already has been taken care of, but I've never had confirmation, so I did not take it off, so I'll retake that one off.
Okay,
The steered straight curriculum, that is when,
Well, I mean, but instead of going through it now, is there a way that maybe just a 1 or 2 sentence synopsis?
and
of
I
this
already
is what-
started drafting that
Oh, okay.
actually this evening, because I've been copying and pasting.
so do we want to do that as our next step, where we get our synopsis for review, and that can go to each of us so that we have that synopsis for
With the
review? So we
breakdown.
know they're here.
And then if during this section of the agenda, board meeting, when we put or add to it, let's make sure whatever trustee adds or suggests that they have a little synopsis of why.
And then
Future board trustees can.
what's
refer to
also
it.
going to be helpful is I'm kind of looking at this as our long-term issues list, if you guys
Yeah.
will. So a ranking would also be helpful if you guys do give feedback to Chrissy, so that Chrissy can take the things that we've ranked in order of importance by trustee. So I'm still going to ask, I mean, it could be an order of importance 1 through 3. Just some type of a ranking system, Chrissy, that you can communicate with them, like what's the order of importance here? So the next time that we see this list, it's prioritized and defined.
I'll put it in a survey, since that's a fun topic tonight.
Or new trustees will be able to
Yeah.
know.
And that way our new trustee could also take it as well.
Is that
Thank you.
superintendent review or is that? part of the-
Evaluation.
That's set in a schedule.
That's a,
Yes, I've been working with Superintendent Russell and Chair Taylor on when to get that set. I believe there was a pause on it waiting for the new board members. So as soon as they're appointed, we will get that set.
Just because it would be group goals and he has to take those into next year. Okay, trustees, are there any other possible agenda items? Sorry, I just wanted to get that kind of cleared up and cleaned up so that I had better direction for this school year. If there's nothing else, then I will entertain a motion to move into executive session.
I move we go into executive session for Idaho Code 742061 B, C, and D. B, to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. C, to acquire an interest in real property which is not Idaho Open Meeting Law Manual 28 owned by a public agency. D, to consider records that are exempt from the disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 Idaho Code.
second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call vote.
Chair Taylor,
Aye.
Trustee Kirkman,
I.
Trustee Simpson,
Aye.
Trustee Valier.
All right, guys, I'm seeing some new faces in the audience, so I am just going to explain this part of our meeting. We go into executive session, meaning that we go into private quarters because we're discussing things that can't be disclosed to public. When we come out, possible action may be taken. Not sure what that will be. We do have to take that out here in the open, and then we adjourn. But there's no more meeting for you to watch or really see from this point forward. Thank you for attending. These are sneaky little mics.
You're good.
All right, we are back in and I will entertain a motion from executive session.
I move that we delegate the superintendent or his designee to pursue possible acquisition, of interest in our real property.
I
I'll
second.
And I, well, yeah,
Okay,
vote when you call for it.
motion has been made in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we are adjourned.
I-